Dylan to the speakers event today, not a certain other producer of the show, because for these reasons. But go on. So the bowling was all being tallied up, the final score. And then?
And then I said, well, first I said, let's all do a shot and then everybody back to my house. But I didn't just say everybody, meaning the lumberjackers. I said everybody who was bowling in the league Saturday night.
How many people is that?
Well, it's 4 per lane and there's 10. Oh, wow. Yeah. I
So dozens.
Yeah.
Dozens. So you're like, let's do a shot and come back to drink at my place.
Correct.
What time was this?
11. Whenever I texted you guys, what was it, 11? 10:30, 11?
It was late. And that was shut down instantly by Bobby. How does he undo an invite that was just shouted to 40 people or whatever?
Well, so the 2 girls that are also on the league, they're like my besties, so they know the drill. They have their own cookie cards, you know.
Oh.
So they just said, Bobby, like, we know obviously we're not all going back to your house, so you might want to hand out a card or 2. So Bobby's just
the card that says drunk offers from my wife are null and void.
Yes. Any plans that my wife has made, they're null and void because she cannot help
He's printed
herself.
these out. He still has these. And this is like for new listeners, this is a real thing in Christine's life.
Yes, it's a business card, and it has a picture of me in the front with 2 drinks in my hand. And the back just says, like, if you've received this card, my wife made plans with you drunkenly. And these are null and void plans, and we are very sorry she cannot help herself. Warmest regards.
So you had no one back to the house?
No, we wound up staying. The band kept playing, and then, like, not many people were dancing except this gal right here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Mean, I had to keep the entertainment going. It was me, and there was this older lady. She had to have been in her 80s. She's all decked out in leopard, you know, like real jersey. And I looked up, and I go, you guys, I'm like, this is going to be Cookie down
it's a glimpse of your future.
And
not even that far down the road either. We got to go.
Like, it's you now.
Yeah, it's you now, but not quite in your 80s yet. It's coming, though. Got to run. Back here tomorrow for the Guy Benson Show. Same time, same place. We'll talk to you then.
Hello, little chump. I'm sorry.
Nope.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou at Term Provider, 800-555-1509. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-555-1509. That's 800-555-1509. For $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-555-1509. 800-555-1509.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here for the Washington Center for Sleep, and I've got some amazing news for those of you who wake up constantly throughout the night because of maybe sleep apnea or snoring that's out of control. For those of you who wake up after sleeping 7, 8, 9 hours feeling like you didn't fall asleep at all. You're tired all day. The good news, Dr. Kugler is offering 25% off laser treatment. All you have to do is mention my name. Go to wasleep.com and schedule today. You can be fitted for an oral appliance. It stops the obstruction in the airways, which lets you sleep throughout the night. You can also get laser treatment to stop the snoring. And I know what you're thinking. That sounds painful. I've done it. It's not painful at all. It's a slight warming of the back of your throat, and bam, you start to see results. Mention my name, get 25% off laser treatment. And yes, they bill medical insurance and accept Medicare. wasleep.com, wasleep.com.
KTTH Seattle, 97.3 KIRO FM, HD3 Tacoma, Seattle, K233BU Seattle, and K233DT Eastlake.
House sit-down. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. President Trump and French President Emmanuel Macron expressing optimism that Russia can be convinced to end the war in Ukraine.
A ceasefire or peace deal ending the 3-year war between Russia and Ukraine could include the deployment of European peacekeepers, French President Emmanuel Macron says.
I think we should never say, I will never send any boots on the ground, because you give a blank check to violate any type of commitment.
President Trump says Russian President Vladimir Putin would accept European peacekeepers.
If we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
But on Russian state television Monday, Putin said he has not discussed ending the war in Ukraine in detail with President Trump.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. This is the UN Security Council has approved a U.S.-sponsored resolution that calls for a swift end to the war, but makes no mention of Russian aggression. The vote 10-0, with 5 countries, including France and Britain, abstaining.
Continuing to engage in rhetorical rivalries in New York may make diplomats feel vindicated, but it will not save souls on the battlefield.
U.S. UN Representative Dorothy Shea. Earlier today, the UN General Assembly rejected the U.S. drafted resolution, which only passed after it was amended to state that the conflict was the result of a full-scale invasion by the Russian Federation. Republican Vivek Ramaswamy has kicked off his campaign for governor of Ohio.
We're on the cusp of a new golden age in America right now. A revival of conviction in what it means to be a citizen of this nation.
Ramaswamy ran an unsuccessful campaign for president in 2024. Current governor, Republican Mike DeWine, is term limited. Wall Street, the Dow gained 33, the NASDAQ off 237. America is listening to Fox News.
I've just been feeling so sluggish lately.
You should try the Metamucil 2-Week Challenge.
The Metamucil 2-Week Challenge?
Yeah, Metamucil 4-in-1 Fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Start your daily routine now, and in 2 weeks, you could be feeling great. Well, it's been 2 weeks. How you feeling? Lighter.
And feeling great.
If you want to feel lighter by promoting digestive health, sign up to take the 2-week challenge at Metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Ouch! The yellow light! I'm walking here!
Good afternoon and welcome to the Jason Rantz Show. We are here on AM 770 KTTH. We are streaming on the KTTH smartphone app. It's a big day for conservatives. Not only did we get rid of Joy Reid, but we elevated Dan Bongino. We'll get into that. But first, the initiative killer is moving forward here in Washington State. And it's titled that for a reason. That's what's trending, brought to you by Legacy Group Capital's Northwest Fund.
What's trending? Let's get political.
I will say, finally, the Seattle Times woke up and decided to cover this issue, something that we've talked about on this show many, many times. The Senate Democrats decided to move forward with an initiative that would effectively kill our initiatives, a bill that would kill voter-led initiatives. They're doing this because they're upset that last year Republicans were able to push through a slate of initiatives that were incredibly popular that reversed the legislative victories for the Democrats because what they were pushing was deeply unpopular. Now, of course, they found a way around, for example, the Parents' Bill of Rights. They just completely gutted it and ignored the will of the people. That's what's going to happen once they end up passing it. But they also decided to pass a bill that would add new requirements overseeing the whole signature gathering process. But the requirements are such that it is impossible to actually complete, which means if this were to pass, assuming it's constitutional, which is a big question, if it passes the way that it's written, Republicans are correct in dubbing it the initiative killer. Now, one of the parts of this that is just so insane to me is that you would, as a signature gatherer, someone who's going around asking people to sign the petition, you would have to sign a declaration on every single sheet of signatures that they collect that it is accurate, what you're sending in. Now, you might say, well, so what? Well, because if I go up and I sign Jackson's name and I put incorrect information and the person signs it, they're now in legal trouble. Why would anyone willingly do that? They're expected to fact check the addresses and the information in a way that is not just cumbersome, but pretty much impossible. And as Senator Phil Fortunato put it on the Senate floor last week, the Republican from Auburn, this is an assault on the voters of Washington.
We have a Constitution for a reason. And, you know, it's pretty simple, pretty clean. You just have to be a registered voter. Now, sometimes people will make mistakes. Sometimes people will sign initiatives twice, for example. Sometimes maybe they moved and they didn't re-register or whatever. So they will make mistakes. That's why we have the process of verification with the Secretary of State's office.
Now, speaking of the Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, who last time I checked was still a Democrat, right?
He is.
Very much so. He's against this. He calls it unnecessary. He says it's cumbersome. He says it's expensive. And as Senator Jim McCune of Graham points out, it's unconstitutional.
And this is changing the wording of the Constitution and making the goals so high and the task so high that nobody will be able to get signatures.
Now, in Washington State, we have a right to move forward with a voter-led initiative. You can make it easier to do voter-led initiatives. You cannot make them harder. That's our constitutional right, which is why this bill is so clearly unconstitutional, but they'll move forward with it anyway. And of course, they're pretending that this has nothing to do with wanting to shut down the initiative process. In fact, to quote Jamie Peterson, the majority leader on the left, quote, "Nobody wants to shut down the initiative process." You know, that would be more believable if y'all didn't say you wanted to stop the initiative process at the beginning of this legislative session because you were upset with the initiative process. You have Democrats who aren't content with having total control of the governorship, the House, and the Senate, and the Supreme Court. They're not happy with that. They need to have total control, which means you won't get a say. They're saying, oh, no, we're just implementing rules to make it safer because, you know, people cheat in elections. Oh, really? Didn't y'all tell us that that doesn't happen? Wasn't that a big talking point from the left? That, oh, our elections are perfect. What are you talking about? Well, technically, we didn't say anything about the voter initiative process. Oh, okay. Understand, if this goes through, we no longer have an initiative process in the state of Washington. It is not possible to abide by the rules that they put in place, and that's precisely why they're putting these rules in place. And that even the Seattle Times gets it, tells you how bad it is, how egregious it is. If even the Seattle Times is calling attention to this, then it's a problem. And they are calling attention to this. I would just want to read a small portion of this because it is a little bit, it's a news story, but they're editorializing a little bit. Because I agree with this editorializing, I'm okay with it. A Senate bill backed by Democrats want to add new requirements. It would require the Secretary of State's office to check addresses during the signature verification process, and it would require signature gatherers to sign a declaration on each sheet of signatures they collect. Backers of the bill say this will increase accountability and ensure each signature belongs to a registered voter. They don't think it should be controversial. It is. And it's with those two words, it is, that tells you, as best as they're ever going to, you know, come out in favor of Republican opposition, it tells you how extreme this actually is. So ask yourself whether or not you believe we should retain the right to voter-led initiatives. And if the answer to that question is yes, then you should be upset with this legislation. If you're upset with this legislation, you should make it known that you're upset with this legislation. You should call your state lawmaker. You should send an email to your state lawmaker. You should tell your friends to do exactly the same thing. You know why we now finally have the ability for law enforcement to pursue criminals who are fleeing in a stolen Hyundai or Kia? Because of the voter-led initiative. We were the ones who got that finally reversed. How many crimes were committed as a direct result of the Democratic legislation that barred police from vehicular pursuits? How many? So many we can't even keep track. How many pot shops had stolen vehicles driven through them, and then the bad guys, upon stealing whatever it is they could, drove away in another stolen vehicle? I mean, there's some shops that got hit multiple times within a short period of time. That's because of that bill. It was reversed as a direct result of you. Now, of course, we would be celebrating the Parental Bill of Rights, but Democrats decided to just gut that because they lied to you. They lied to us all when they said, okay, fine, we'll accept the initiative, and then just undo it. It's pretty disgusting. But if this bothers you, okay, do something about it. Say something. You can be civil, yet still be passionate when calling or writing to your lawmakers and making sure everyone knows. The voter initiative process is incredibly popular. Did you know that?
Really?
Shocking, I know. People like signing things. It's incredibly popular. So when people realize that this is indeed an initiative killer, they likely will start to push back themselves. So let's make sure we're actually saying something in a way that could effectively move this along. Get in the way of this. Let's find out what else is trending.
What's trending? Starbucks.
So Starbucks announced today that they are laying off at a corporate level some 1,100 or so employees. They're out. They're not out of a job just quite yet, but they're on the way out. Now, the reason why this is actually pretty simple. But I heard an interesting response that got me thinking a little bit differently, or at least understanding maybe a different perspective. On the one hand, you had the CEO, Brian Niccol, saying, here's what we're doing. We have to streamline our operations. We've got too many people, especially in corporate positions. In fact, he wrote in the letter announcing all of this, quote, our intent is to operate more efficiently, increase accountability, reduce complexity, and drive better integration. Now, that makes sense on the surface, yeah? They've got some bloat. Mm-hmm. They're kind of doging themselves. They're going through a doge session. And the people who are impacted will find out apparently by tomorrow afternoon. But on our sister station, one of the hosts there had said this might be Starbucks trying to get ready for some tough economic times, or you might want to tighten the belt a little bit right before you expect a tumultuous economy, which also kind of makes sense. But I don't think that's what this is. I don't think that that's what's going to happen because there's no indication that we have or will have a struggling economy. Now, there's reason to believe that unemployment's going to go up because we're firing a whole bunch of people. Did you get the memo?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're terminating a lot of people at the federal level. And so obviously those numbers are going to start to go up. But I don't think that this is a reflection of, a concern about the economy. I think it's a reflection of Starbucks being so far gone that they have to make some pretty drastic measures to course correct. We heard from the CEO, I think over the weekend, or at least I saw it quoted over the weekend, where he said it was a mistake to put as much of an effort and put as much attention to mobile ordering and drive-through. That clearly was the directive coming from previous leadership. Focus on mobile, focus on drive-through, in part because they were being influenced by the change in habits around COVID and the fact that everyone's super lazy and they would just rather drive and get their order rather than walk in.
I've seen people wait like 45 minutes in a Starbucks drive-thru. It's absurd.
It's so insane how long sometimes those lines are. But people do what they do. I don't know. The mobile ordering part, I don't know if that's really going to go away. That's all. I haven't spoken to a barista and told them my order maybe in 3 years. Right? I'm always using it on the mobile. So maybe they mean something else when they're talking about the problem with mobile. Perhaps going a little overboard. We told you last week that they're cutting down the menu items that you could potentially get via the app. But I think this is just them saying we need to course correct. And we had the wrong strategy for the longest time, and now we got to have a better strategy. And name a company that exploded during COVID that didn't do exactly the same thing. Amazon, for example, and all the tech companies, they built a lot of infrastructure, they hired a lot of folks, and then they let them all go. I mean, Amazon went through this not too long ago. Same thing with Meta, same thing with Apple, although today they made the announcement they're hiring a bunch of more people, but different priorities, different departments. So I think this is just course correcting. And as much as I don't particularly like Starbucks coffee because it's gross, I will, though, say I do like a cortado made with heavy cream. That's the best. Do you know what a cortado is? You don't even know.
I have no idea.
You have no clue. It's equal parts espresso and, in this case, heavy cream.
Oh, okay.
So it's just 2. I think they do 2, maybe 3 shots. I can't remember. I think they might do 3.
I thought you said their blonde was also decent.
Their blonde roast in the context of Starbucks is pretty good. It's pretty good. But literally go anywhere else and you're going to get, for the most part, better coffee. The reason why I sort of started to think about the economic scenario was that earlier today, the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, was on with, yesterday was on with Maria Bartiromo on Fox News. And she asked a really interesting and important question about all the Doge terminations. And even though it seems pretty obvious, I wonder how many people actually thought about it in this sense, which is, you're firing a whole bunch of people. Doesn't that hurt the economy? Doesn't that raise the unemployment level?
You're dealing with so much, and Doge is cutting jobs. Does that cut into growth?
I think that if we have a bloated government and if that gets cut down, then government spending will go down. Many times on your show in the past 10 months, I've talked about reprivatizing the economy, and that's what we're going to have to do. We've seen what I would call this orgiastic government spending with the past administration. We're running 6.7, 6.9% deficit to GDP, which we've never had when we're not in a recession, not in a war, and we're going to bring that down. And so as the government employment comes down, private sector will not be crowded out anymore. All the jobs created by the Biden, not all, but the 70, 85% of the jobs created by the Biden administration were government jobs, government adjacent. They crowded out the private sector. The government interest rates spiked. I would just point out, interest rates are down 5 weeks in a row on the 10-year since President Trump took office. And mortgage rates are down. We're going to get that down.
Do you buy his response there? I'm kind of on the fence because I certainly agree with what he's saying, but at the same time, you still do have to fill those private sector jobs, and you now have fewer people at work. I can't imagine people are going to get a job overnight. If you're terminating with 8 months worth of pay and benefits, I imagine you're probably going to take a little bit of an extended break. So I don't see how we wouldn't see at least a temporary hit. Here in Washington State, we saw a jump of 25% or so in unemployment claims, specifically because of the government workers who are in this state entitled to state unemployment because they work in the state of Washington. So how do you course correct those numbers that quickly? I don't think you can.
Yeah, not quickly.
And the sad part about that is, even if this is the right move, the numbers go up, unemployment. What do you think is going to happen on the TV?
They're going to be, saying bashing Trump.
Horrible things. Look at the numbers. Things are so much better under Joe Biden, even though that's obviously nonsense. And when you talk like that about the economy, sometimes the economy is all like, I guess we do suck. And then it starts to struggle. And then you lose some support on Wall Street, and then the Dow Jones implodes, and then bam, you have folks on the left getting what they want, which is, actual economic chaos that they're going to help cause, because it lets them go after Donald Trump. So I just say, let's be a little cautious about all of these changes happening so fast. As much as I expect that we'll see positive results from it in the long term, understand we're going to have some not so positive results in the short term. Push the button.
What's trending in the classroom?
There was a story we covered several months ago, and it was something in the Seattle Times about a principal who had created a quote-unquote toxic learning and work environment at the school that she was with. Now, she used to be with Rainier View Elementary School as the principal. Anitra Jones was her name. You and her go back a while, right?
Old drinking buddies, yeah.
Yes, you considered her a mentor at one point. You would say someone finally gets booted from their principal position because of a toxic work and learning environment. To meet that bar within the Seattle Public School District is probably really high, because I think they're on year 2 of an investigation into Ian Golosh for his anti-Semitism that was on full display. So it takes a lot to get pulled from a principal position, especially in SPS. Yeah, you think it might be a problem that she's now being placed in another school in a very similar position. Do you think that maybe they did not learn their lesson? She's now at Rainier Beach High School. She started working as a, quote, principal on special assignment. Now, if the assignment is to create a toxic environment, it feels like maybe this is a good job for her. But I sincerely doubt that's what they're trying to do here. According to the Seattle Times, a state labor relations adjudicator found that Jones had unlawfully discriminated against 3 Rainier View staff members by including negative and disparaging comments in their evaluations and recommending more intense evaluations for 2 of them. Now, I will point out, I don't necessarily even believe that this principal created a toxic environment, because I don't trust anyone who works at SPS. And so if someone says, oh, you complained about me, well, maybe you deserved it. Maybe you ought to be called out in your evaluations. That's what an evaluation is.
Sometimes the truth hurts.
I know. So I will say, just on the surface, I'm always skeptical of any of these kinds of stories. But they write, Jones's placement at Rainier Beach has raised concerns, particularly as some families have children enrolled at both the high school and Rainier View Elementary. A spokesperson for the district said, she's not supervising or evaluating staff, but she will be able to supervise students. They say they're going to review the role at the end of the year, and then they'll make a decision on what to do next. If you were able to pull someone for toxic environment, you should not be putting them in another position over anything. Sorry, what happened to just termination? Now, if you believe, if the investigation found that according to the state labor relations adjudicator, that she had unlawfully discriminated, how is that not subject to termination? What do you need? What do you need to have happen? Is it that the only people that they're going to terminate at SPS, or in many school districts, not just to pick on them, is that a violent crime had to have been committed? Because even then, it seems like you drag your feet. What is going on here? What is going on here? How are you, if you're a parent of a kid at this school, comfortable with this? If the person had been found to have unlawfully, which last time I checked, perhaps the left redefined this word, meant illegally, discriminated against people. And I remember this story originally, like parents were up in arms, staff members were, and they made a really big deal about this. And so something was there enough to get them passionate to want to push this woman out. Why give her another chance at that level? How could you argue that? If any one of us in the private sector created an unlawful toxic environment due to unlawful discrimination, we would be terminated in a heartbeat. Maybe we should rethink the whole union protection thing. I think it's horrible and detrimental to businesses, but it allows you to be a bad person. And some people might, in this building, take advantage of it, named Jason Rantz. Right? I mean, what else do you need to do to get terminated?
It's kind of like what we're seeing at the federal level. How it's like impossible to get fired.
100%. And so, maybe send Elon here. Maybe he's got to look at this. And it's true. And we've joked about this multiple times. I've made this joke many times. It is nearly impossible as a government worker to get canned. It's almost impossible. You have to commit the crime to like the family member of the person who would fire you. They'd have to be the victim. And you have to do it in front of them. And then only then do you get put on ice for like a year and a half or 2 years, and then you get terminated. And don't worry, the 2 years will be paid. How is it possible that...
I think I got into the wrong line of work.
No kidding. My gosh. I saw like the average, Ralph Norman said the average, the congressman from South Carolina, said the average pay for a government worker is like $106,000. I mean, $106,000 and you can't get fired? Sounds like a good gig.
I don't have to do that much either, honestly.
Of course you don't have to. It's government work. The Sunset Auto family proudly supports KTTH Radio. And they want you to know every new vehicle from Sunset comes with oil changes for life. That's up to 5 oil changes a year, saving you thousands of dollars over time. Ready for your next car or truck? Visit our friends at the Sunset Auto family. When we come back, someone who won't be able to afford a car at all is Joy Reid, as well as some other MSNBCers who are now out of a job. We'll tell you what happened and so much more when we return on The Jason Rantz Show.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose. And millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here for Alpine Specialty Services. Now seems like a great time to upgrade that HVAC system. Save thousands of dollars in state and utility rebates, all when you purchase and install a heat pump through Alpine. AlpineClean.com is the place to go. While we're talking about Alpine and their tremendous services, let's talk about the way they engage in those services, because that matters. When you're hiring someone, when you're inviting them into your home, when you're dealing with them on large projects and small, you want to make sure that you're being treated fairly. You want to be treated well, like you're a VIP. I mean, a lot of people always say, oh, we treat our customers like VIPs, and then you don't really feel that treatment. That's the difference with Alpine Specialty Services, because they want to deliver exceptional customer service. And they've been very, very successful. I can tell you that as someone who's an actual customer. But if you don't believe me, that's okay. Although, shame on you. Why don't you believe me? I feel like I'm quite honest here. But how about this? Go look up one of their over 10,000 5-star online reviews. They have an amazing reputation because they've earned it. You can find out how they've earned it. Go to alpineclean.com. It's where exceptional service experience is always in the air. alpineclean.com.
A good retirement requires more than just having a retirement nest egg and a good investment strategy. Sadly, most people don't have that kind of a plan. And that's why retirement turns into a nightmare for most retirees. Nightmares of one falling ill and ending up in a nursing home, becoming a burden on loved ones, and losing money to uncovered care costs. All preventable with the right retirement plan. Hi, this is elder law attorney Rajiv Nagaich and founder of LifePoint Law. Let me invite you to resolve to make 2025 the year you create a real plan for retirement. I've helped thousands of people in the Seattle area, and I know I can help you too. Come to one of my retirement planning seminars this month, and I will show you how.
Attend a free seminar in Tacoma on March 4th, Federal Way on March 6th, or Bellevue on March 8th. Register at lifepointlaw.com or call 253-838-3454. 253-838-3454.
After 25 years, one of the largest gutter cover companies just pulled out of Western Washington. Why? Their product couldn't handle the fir needles. Don't overpay for gutter covers that don't work. TruthGuard by Free Rain is ideal for the Northwest. They're not a fine mesh that films over and clogs. They're not a reverse curve with a tiny slit for water to get through that clogs. TruthGuard gutter covers are made from high-strength aluminum that sits flush atop your existing gutters and are nearly invisible from the street. Extremely easy to clean with 48 micro perforations per inch. They keep all the leaves and needles out while letting the water flush through. And here's the best part. They're a fraction of the cost of the overpriced competition. Schedule a free estimate to bulletproof your gutter system. Go to freeraingutter.com or call 425-215-0033. That's 425-215-0033 or freeraingutter.com. Let's make gutters great again with TruthGuard by Free Rain.
This hour of the Jason Rantz Show is brought to you by General Transmission Repair.
Welcome back to the Jason Rantz Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. I don't normally like to, bag on people who lose their job, especially in media, mostly because inevitably I'm going to be terminated, right? And that is inevitable. Don't know when, but it's going to happen. It has to, because it happens to everyone in radio. And I don't know if I want to be that guy who stays in one position for like 40 years. To me, that sounds depressing. It really does. Like, wouldn't you be depressed if you were in that position for 40 years?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, even if I was at the top of my game, 40, that's a lot. So eventually I will force termination. And I don't want people jumping on me, which inevitably they would do, especially in Seattle. But Joy Reid.
There's some people that, maybe they have it coming a little bit.
They kind of do, especially when you are a virulent racist like Joy. And the good news in her termination that was announced yesterday is that you'll have plenty of time to find the hackers who put all those homophobic jokes in her blog that she 100% had nothing to do with and most definitely did not write. I mean, the FBI got involved and then weirdly just stopped getting involved. I wonder why. It's so weird. They don't usually just quit something. Maybe they've been working, but they've just been hitting dead ends. Kind of like OJ finding the real killers. They tried. They tried. His biggest regret of his life, not following all the clues to find out who really killed him.
And she'll write a book and say, like, if I had wrote that.
If I had written that. So she's out. The readout is out. She's been there in that position since 2020, at least in the evening show. This was not her first show that was canceled on MSNBC, but it was the highest profile, I suppose. This is part of a larger shift over at MSNBC. They're making some significant changes. Now, I haven't seen an update yet. Have you on when her official last show is? We know it's this week. It might be tonight.
It could be. I haven't.
You're right. I haven't seen a specific time, but for all we know, it's tonight. You generally don't want to give someone like Joy Reid.
Oh, it is tonight.
Is it? Okay, there it is. She might go out guns a-blazing. And Keith Olbermann is already saying, former MSNBC host who was terminated, is saying that she was terminated because of racism. It's racist. Except she's being replaced by a black man, a black woman, and a Latina woman. So kind of, if it was for racism, they're definitely giving themselves cover over at MSNBC. Simone Sanders, Michael Steele, Alicia Menendez, they are taking over that spot. They currently have a weekend show simply called The Weekend, which is not inspiring at all. I'm assuming the show will be called The Evening Show on MSNBC. This is not the only folks who are being shuffled. She's leaving the network completely. Sometimes they'll stick around and they'll do quote unquote like special programming like Chuck Todd did until he inevitably decided just to go because no one even remembered he was there.
Boy, that guy fell off the map.
Right? No kidding. He went from a totally incompetent guy in an important position to totally incompetent guy who you forgot had a position. But she's out completely. Jonathan Capehart, who's one of the worst.
Yeah, he's insufferable.
Finds himself out of his slot. Don't know if it's a termination. I've seen conflicting reports. Katie Fang is out of her slot. She's the insufferable partisan lawyer who always pretends that she's making nonpartisan points while only targeting Republicans. And some others find themselves, Aydin Mohad, whatever that guy's name is, he's out. So clearly they're sending a bit of a message that maybe they don't want all the crazy. I don't know if putting Simone Sanders and Michael Steele, in the lineup completely leans into the crazy. It moderates it a little bit, I think. Jen Psaki is the one who potentially is going to be the replacement for Rachel Maddow after the first 100 days are done. I don't know if they're going to do, again, 4 days a week and have Rachel just do Monday. That also means Alex Wagner, the woman you forgot is on MSNBC and has a primetime show. She's out. Or at least her show is done. So Joy Reid, though, is the biggest name in all of this. And we went back and I had you go through all the controversial moments from her career, and you spent all day doing it, and you only got through last week's shows.
There was a lot to cull through.
It really is a lot.
And I always say that, the difference between religion and a cult is in religion, your savior dies for you.
By the way, why do you always say that? What a weird thing to always say. How does that always come up in conversation? You know what the difference between a religion and a cult is? I say this all the time. Why? What kind of conversations are you having?
As Jesus did. In a cult, you're asked to die for your savior. And, what Donald Trump is doing, it's equal parts the power of positive thinking, which is the church to the extent that it's a church that he grew up in. But it's also, it's kind of David Koresh.
Oh, God. Okay, so let's put on the list of things she's called Donald Trump, David Koresh. So put that one there. But also, he's like Hitler.
Defeating the Jews of Europe, who they viewed as subhuman, was a question of good conquering evil, which conditioned millions of Germans to celebrate Hitler and turn a blind eye to his brutality. If that sounds vaguely familiar, that's because it is.
It doesn't sound vaguely familiar. I mean, I know the history that she's referring to. That part sounds familiar. But the comparison that she's about to make, no.
Similarities to what happened in Germany and what's happening now in America are just undeniable. History may not repeat verbatim, but it sure does rhyme.
It doesn't rhyme. I say this all the time. It doesn't match verbatim, but it sure does rhyme. I say this all the time.
Acting like she coined that phrase, by the way.
Oh, she didn't? That didn't come from her? I thought it did. She also said, don't judge a book by its cover. Was that not her either? Oh, okay, that's weird. Then she went on a rant against Tennessee banning trans surgeries for children. And obviously, she's got to make another Nazi reference.
Targeting trans people isn't new. It is an age-old tradition, which Nazi Germany did with brutally violent ends in the 1930s.
Yeah, that's the first thing I think of is them targeting trans, not the Jews. That's the first. That's my mind jumps immediately to
I'm sure there was a lot of those in 1930s Germany running around.
All over the place. Yeah, Abe Lincoln was trans. Didn't you hear that too? Wasn't there a letter he wrote one time where he liked to wear women's pajamas? Shared a bed with a... Okay, well, we got it. So this is obviously good news. MSNBC is an interesting position because, I was trying to think if they really win in all of this. I imagine their base of lunatics are upset, right? Now, she had really poor ratings. So maybe they're not as upset, but undoubtedly they're being called all sorts of names on X today, or Blue Sky, excuse me.
By the same five people that,
Yeah, by the same five over and over and over again. I saw also, and Curtis Houck will be on the show later today to talk about this from Newsbusters, that her staff is also on the out, which makes total sense if you're associated with that show, of course. What does she do next? Does she start her own, Substack or...
I could see her doing like a podcast or...
Oh, no. Maybe she'll be the replacement for Dan Bongino. You think that'll happen? No, probably not. Our friend Dan Bongino, of course, 9 to noon right here on KTTH. Still 9 to noon until March 14th. He is taking a job as the deputy director of the FBI, which came as a shock to a whole bunch of people. His name was being thrown around as leading the Secret Service. But that obviously didn't go his way. And so I was like, phew, I don't want to lose Dan. We can't lose Dan Bongino. Then you're going to take Mark. You can't take Levin because he's a really brilliant attorney. Don't take him.
And he's worked in the presidential administration.
And then they'll be like, hey, they might take Jason. They're not. They haven't even called. That offends me. Not even a call.
All these people in your phone that are in the administration, but not you.
But not me. And so it was funny. I sent him a text last night, Dan, to congratulate him. And he got back to me within like 2 minutes. And this was right when the story broke. He got back. That's true friendship right there. That's true friendship from Dan. And I was talking to our sister station's Jake Skorheim about this, and I don't know if it's impressive or not, but like the entire administration is in my phone. All of them. Seriously, like almost everyone is in my phone. And so now I was trying to figure out, well, what are the things I could ask for favors on? So if I'm ever accused of terrorism, I've got Dan. I think Kash Patel's number is in my phone, so I don't talk to him very often. But then I go, hey, Dan, I've been accused of a terrorist plot. Help me out. Help a radio brother out. I imagine because of Sean Duffy as Secretary of the Transportation Department, I'll never have to be stopped by TSA again.
Just walk right on through.
Right? I think I should be able to go right on in. Then we have, of course, the Surgeon General. She hasn't gone through her process yet, but that'll be an easy one, Jeanette Neshwat. Like, hey, can I get some Ambien? I feel like I should be able to I feel like all these people, Marco, I don't know directly, but Tammy Bruce, his spokesperson, I do. Like, hey.
What favors do you need from the State Department, though?
Yeah, I don't know, about passport-related
I was going to say something abroad, maybe.
Yeah, like maybe my passport. I don't want to wait a month and a half to get my passport renewed. Hook me up. I feel like we could do, and then I was like, well, maybe we can do something on the show. But then I said, no, I don't want to help the show. I want to grow the show myself. I don't need access to all these people. I want to use that for personal gain. And I just have to come up with the list of things that I want. And I'm assuming everyone does that, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of knowing people in high places if you can't benefit personally from it?
What does it matter if I know Pete Hegseth, but I can't ask him to,
Oh, what perks could you get from him? DOD?
A missile? I mean, if they ever bring back the draft.
Yeah,
Wait, what were you about to say? I'm a 29-year-old.
I know.
I'm a 29-year-old still for
That's
another
why I stopped
few
myself.
days.
I was going to say, wait a minute. No.
Yeah, as a 29-year-old, I could be subjected to the draft. I can just say, hey, Pete, give me a break. So the list goes on and on and on. At some point, I'll figure out. What I was always told by lawyers to do is the smart move is to write everything down and put everything down on paper, how I'm plotting. So I'm going to do that at some point, probably. I'm taking some time off for my birthday next week. And then I'm going to New York for a project. Well, once the ticket's purchased, I'll announce it on air. I'm still waiting for that. Well, we have dates for it. But I could every birthday I usually do not journaling because that sounds like a wimpy thing to do, but I journal and I write down like goals and stuff. I'm very goal oriented. Like get to this point by this point. Do this by that date. So I do all of that. And this year, instead of doing that, I'm going to write all of the things I want from important people in D.C. I think did we talk about this on air? I was invited to the White House this week to do interviews with members of the administration, but I couldn't go. I couldn't get it done. Well, I mean, they weren't paying for it.
Oh, well, yeah, then okay.
Or like, hey, we're doing a Radio Row kind of thing, but it's very, very select. And I was the first person or one of the first people in the first group to be invited down. And I thought when I got that email, they sent it to everyone. In fact, I think I told you, hey, I think I got them. I think they probably sent it to all the conservative hosts. So I just deleted it. I didn't even respond. And then I got a call from someone in their comms team who I used to work with over at Fox. They said, did you get my email? I never heard back from you. I was like, oh, wait, that was real? That was to me specifically? I thought it was to everyone. No, that was to you, Jason. And then I politely declined. I said next time. Because I do want to go down. Because Donald Trump's going to do interviews.
Oh, sure.
100%. He'll take questions. And I did say, this is the one thing I've already told them that I want to do. The favor I will ask for is when I am, in fact, in D.C., if there is a Caroline Leavitt press briefing, I'm in that seat for that extra media member who's not important enough to go every day. I want that seat. I'm going to be that person. And I won't have a very great question. I was thinking, like, what question would you ask if you were there? And I can't think of a single one that's a good one.
Wouldn't it just kind of depend on the news of the day?
I was thinking, like, if it were happening today, what would my question be? No clue. Nothing came to mind. I would probably say, no, I'm good. Can you come back to me? Pass. 1-800-465-8770 for your text messages. 1-800-465-8770. When we come back, some good news in polling for Donald Trump. Maybe that's why Democrats are so scared. We'll get into that and so much more on KTTH.
Confidence is knowing you're ready to handle whatever comes your way. That's what it feels like to take on your workday with Cintas. They make sure your AEDs are up to date, your fire extinguishers are tested and inspected, your floor mats are cleaned and delivered, and your workwear looks good, feels good, and is freshly laundered with a Cintas Apparel Plus program. So are you ready to take on today? Visit Cintas.com.
Oh, I'm ready!
And get ready for the workday.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz. I have a great offer for those of you who suffer with snoring. And maybe you realize it and you want to do something about it. You don't know what to do. Maybe your spouse definitely knows you've got a problem. Something called Night Laze. It's laser treatment. And when you mention my name at the Washington Center for Sleep, you get 25% off. Now, the idea of treating your snoring with lasers probably sounds terrifying and or painful. It is neither. It's done in just a few moments. You barely feel a thing. And I say that as someone who's gone through the Night Laze laser treatment. And to get 25% off right now, that's a deal. That's a steal. They bill medical insurance. They accept Medicare. They're in network with major medical insurance providers. So head on over to wasleep.com. And if you've been struggling with sleep, if you've been snoring and it's keeping you awake or not allowing you to get restful sleep, let me tell you something. The best thing you can do is to visit Dr. Kugler at the Washington Center for Sleep. wasleep.com. It's improved my sleeping. It's improved my energy. And frankly, I'm a little upset I didn't do it sooner. wasleep.com. wasleep.com.
Did you know your skin is the largest organ of your body? Huh? That's why you should shower with Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash instead of plain old bar soap. Love your skin by super hydrating it with vitamin B3 and glorious notes of vanilla and shea. Did you know that my super hydrated skin is the second largest organ of my body? The first is my heart. Old Spice. Men have skin too. Old Spice Super Hydration Body Wash. 24/7 renewing moisture. With daily use.
Okay, I have to tell you, I was just looking on eBay where I go for all kinds of things I love, and there it was.
That hologram trading card. One of the rarest, the last one I needed for my set. Shiny like the
designer handbag of my dreams. One of a kind. eBay had it, and now everyone's asking, ooh, where'd you get your
windshield wipers? eBay has all the parts that fit my car. No more annoying, just beautiful.
Whatever you love, find it on eBay. eBay. Things people love.
This is a test of your emergency alert system.
Cougar basketball is back.
These guys want to get better at basketball. They want to go as far as they can in the game. They want to get their education.
They want to be around each other and build a real family.
Coach Riley and the Cougs are ready.
We put in so much work all of our lives for this exact moment.
We are Wazoo. It's only on your home for Cougar basketball.
Catch the Cougs all season long on AM 770 KTTH.
Welcome back to the Jason Rantz Show. The data guy over at NBC who's always weirdly excited about the data he talks about. Like weirdly, there's something going on there. It's like some data fetish. Just likes polls.
Harry Enton's kind of the same way, so.
Yeah, that's true. But Steve Kornacki has a weirder attitude about it.
He's more verbally animated, or not verbally, but physically animated.
He moves his arms a lot. He gesticulates a lot. Well, he pointed out something that I think Democrats are loath to hear, which is that Donald Trump is really good about picking out positions and policies that follow kind of the 70-30, 80-20 rule, even though the numbers are slightly off from that. But it's basically we're picking something that is undeniably popular, and we're staking our brand around it. And that's what he's doing with immigration.
He's done some things, proposed some things that are popular. That executive order to expand oil and gas production, the executive order recognizing two sexes. And also, when you look at immigration, there's all sorts of different ways to ask about it. But the CBS poll here had asked the general Trump administration program to deport immigrants who are here illegally. You see broad support there when it's asked at the broad level like that.
When you come up with policies that are popular, it makes it, in a lot of ways, easier to deal with from the opposing side, which is you don't really have many options on what to do because you can't propose a solution, a different idea, right? Because it's a popular idea. So what do? You attack. It's literally, isn't that weird that when you're dealing with someone who's really popular, it's much easier to figure out what your strategy is going to be, which is always just attack, create chaos or the appearance of chaos. I did notice that there wasn't a press conference today, or if there was, I missed it, with unhinged lawmakers outside of some office in D.C. Did we miss that? I just don't think there was one today.
I don't think there was one.
That's so odd. You would think that because of the successes of all the other ones and all the really great, press that they got and snippets on TV, like when the Congresswoman said she wanted to bleep Donald Trump, which was a weird statement to make. I think she was missing a word in that, but God bless. From Oregon, I think, good for them.
Should go harass some more security guards.
I still legitimately can't figure out why they thought that was a good look in the moment they were there. I know sometimes you get caught up in the moment, and we're talking about a couple weeks now. It was outside of the Department of Education. There was a security guard who wouldn't allow the mob of left-wing members of Congress to go in. They were, what? Do you know who I am? They actually pulled a do you know who I am? And this poor guy gets paid $20 an hour, and he's just getting yelled at by all these geriatric.
He handled it well.
He really did. He just kept his cool and just said, no, I can't let you in. Under whose authority? Do you know who we are? It was a horrible look. Maybe that's when they determined they should probably quit this. Because even some of the left-wing outlets kind of criticized a little bit. And there's only so much you can do with that kind of footage. You can't really clean it up to make them look better. Now, interestingly enough, I think that's behind James Carville's advice. He was on the Dan Abrams podcast, and he said something that he also said last week on Sean Hannity. Listen to how he's framing what Democrats have to do to hurt Donald Trump and Republicans.
I believe that this administration, in less than 30 days, in the midst of a massive collapse, in particularly a collapse in public opinion. Della Volpe at Harvard, who's very good. He's gone from 53 approval to under 30 to 39.
That sounds real.
That's a collapse. And all we need to do, the analogy I use, is Pickett is 500 yards from the stone wall. Hold your fire. It's going to be easy pickings here in 6 weeks. Just lay back.
Lay back. And when he says hold your fire, don't say anything, which is almost word for word what he ended up saying on Sean Hannity last week, which is just stop talking, and Donald Trump will hurt himself. Now, there's certainly truth to the general strategy of not saying anything and let someone hang themselves, right? That's not a new strategy. There's no way that's what he's saying here, truthfully. What he's saying is, we're hearing what you're saying, and it's very, very, very bad. Please shut up. Please shut up. That we have a better shot at defeating Donald Trump by allowing him to make a mistake and go too far. And what's standing in the way is that you're going further than he is in the crazy train. That you have boarded crazy train, and the conductor had a heart attack, and a monkey is still throwing coal in the little thingamajiggy, and no one can stop it. I saw that in a cartoon once, or a duck. I can't remember what the animal. It was an animal of some kind. It's not good. This train is just gaining steam and going faster and faster and faster. And the metaphor is their stupid talking points. And you're going to crash. Stop it. That is a wise choice. Now, I don't think it's going to lead to Donald Trump imploding, because all that means is he will have less, quotes to compete with and less annoying stunts to have to deal with, and gets a little bit of a straight shot for whatever it is he's trying to do for the next 6 months or 6 weeks. And if anyone thinks he's going to implode in 6 weeks, what are you, nuts? Again, he's on the right side of the issues. And when you're on the right side of the issues, people are willing to give you a lot of leeway to do your thing. And voters have already said this about Donald Trump. They're willing to accept the bad because of the good. In this case, the bad might be a personality you don't like, or comments that are mean, whatever it is. The perception of chaos. But when you really like the results, the planning, the policies, whatever it is, you're saying, okay, I'll deal with it.
Especially after 4 years of Biden.
Exactly. And that was the biggest problem, is that we suffered through Biden, and people said, never mind, go back to the other guy. He was way better. It's a Jason Rantz Show.
John Curley here for Longevity Medical Clinic. I have to tell you, I don't know where I would be in my life without Longevity Medical Clinic. I've been a patient for 15 years. It's so easy to get started. Schedule a free health analysis appointment online with LongevityMedicalClinic.com. During your visit, you're going to spend a full hour with your doctor to craft a comprehensive health plan tailored to your exact needs and lifestyle. I've been able to reduce my risk for serious disease like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Longevity will help you plan for long-term well-being and personalized health care. The approach is really simple. It's proactive. It focuses on prevention, going beyond the traditional model of just merely managing your symptoms and treating conditions as they arise. Let's face it, just because you're getting older, we're all getting older, it doesn't mean you have to fall apart. Get started with your free health analysis at Longevity Medical Clinic. That's LongevityMedicalClinic.com. Again, that's LongevityMedicalClinic.com.
Follow AM 770 KTTH on X.
Hey, Bill! Got a leak? Need heat? Call Southwest today.
Southwest Plumbing, the one to call.
Hey, this is Pete from Home Matters. Tune in this weekend when we'll talk with local business owners about everything in and around your home. Join us on Saturdays from 2 to 3 right here on AM 770 KTTH, or listen to the podcast on mynorthwest.com.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz. I'm with Phil Mitchell. He's owner of Sunset Auto Family, Sunset Ford, Chevrolet, Kia, and Sunset Trucks. So you offer oil changes for life, and that means even if I have a car 5, 6, 7, 8 years, you're going to do that for me each and every year?
We've got customers that have had them 25 years, Jason, and they come back over and over again. Some of these people have 3, 4, 500,000 miles on these vehicles because, one, we're backing it with warranty protection for life, and two, we're giving them oil changes for life. So, I mean, we really take care of the customer, and they get a lot of life out of the vehicles, and oil changes for life could save you a couple $1,000 a year.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I mean, oil changes are expensive.
They're up to $200 if you're doing a diesel, and so, you know, you get 5 of them a year, that's $1,000 a year.
I can see why people keep coming back.
It's not what you pay, Jason, it's what you get. And you just get more at Sunset.
When you're ready to buy your next vehicle, be sure to visit our friends at Sunset Auto Family. Sunset Ford, Chevrolet, Kia, and Sunset Trucks.
Folks, you just got to get in here.
You just get more at Sunset, and people do like that.
Let's talk insulation rebates. Hi, Dave Ross for American Crawl Space and Pest Services. Last year, I told you that they had given out over $1 million in PSE rebates on insulation. A few months later, the American Crawl team hit the $2 million mark, and in the final days of December of 2024, the American Crawl Space and Pest Services team gave out over $3 million in PSE rebates on insulation. I'll tell you again, American Crawl is the team to call. Find out more about continued PSE insulation rebate opportunities on their website, americancrawl.com.
KTTH Seattle, 97.3 KIRO-FM, HD3 Tacoma, Seattle, K233BU Seattle, and K233DT Eastlake.
He sees an end to the war in Ukraine. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
We want peace. And I think the initiative of President Trump is a very positive one.
French President Emmanuel Macron speaking to Fox's Brett Baer just hours after meeting with President Trump. He says he thinks a truce could come in the coming week.
I think it's feasible to have a truce at least and start negotiating for a sustainable peace. But we need something substantial for Ukraine, for the Europeans and their security, for the U.S. and its credibility.
Macron saying France and Europe has to do more with defense spending, and he said there will be an announcement from the European Commission to increase financing. Earlier this afternoon, President Trump said both Russia and Ukraine want an end to the war.
I've spoken with both President Putin and President Zelensky, and again, a lot of good things toward peace are happening.
The president said Putin would accept European peacekeepers, but on Russian state television, Putin said he hasn't talked in detail with President Trump about ending the war. The U.S. Office of Personnel Management has told human resources officials that employees would not be let go for not replying to an email asking what they did last week. Meanwhile, a federal judge blocking the Department of Government Efficiency from obtaining certain information from the Education Department and Office of Personnel Management.
A lawsuit brought by the American Federation of Teachers and other labor unions was seeking to block the Elon Musk-led DOGE from accessing financial data related to student loans at the Department of Education. A federal judge in Maryland siding with the unions and issuing a temporary restraining order blocking DOGE from
be a citizen of this nation.
Ramaswamy ran an unsuccessful campaign for
Office of Personnel Management.
Fox's Ryan Schmelz in Washington. America is listening to Fox News.
I've just been feeling so sluggish lately.
You should try the Metamucil 2-Week Challenge.
The Metamucil 2-Week Challenge?
Yeah, Metamucil 4-in-1 Fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Start your daily routine now, and in 2 weeks, you could be feeling great. Well, it's been 2 weeks. How you feeling?
Lighter and feeling great.
If you want to feel lighter by promoting digestive health, sign up to take the 2-week challenge at Metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Coach! The yellow light! I'm walking here!
Good afternoon and welcome to the Jason Rantz Show on AM 770 KTTH. We are streaming on the KTTH smartphone app. The mayor of Richland is taking heat because she had the audacity to support Doge. But first, is it a bunch of chaos? That's what we're told from local TSA employees who are saying they don't know if they have a job. That's what's trending. Brought to you by the Sunset Auto family.
What's trending in Trumplandia?
There's some questions and concerns following some of the moves under Elon Musk and Doge. And there are concerns over whether or not someone still has a job. There's concerns over whether or not someone's going to have to respond to an email that Elon Musk announced over the weekend, basically saying you got to give us 5 things you accomplished last week. Part of the reason why he's doing that, he says, is because there are a whole bunch of folks who are not even showing up to work. Some of them might be dead and still somehow collecting paychecks. He's wondering whether or not people who say they're at work and doing work are actually doing just that. So there are two separate issues, but generally the media has jumped on this as a way to say everything is chaotic. And I certainly concede the way that they're covering it does, in fact, seem chaotic. But there was a piece today from King 5 about that 5 bullet point email about about the accomplishments. And now they're speaking to at least one person over at the TSA locally who says they're getting a bunch of mixed messages.
They want to reduce government, but this is not the efficiency kind of way to go about it.
So real quickly, first of all, you have a very distinct voice. I don't know why you would just go on TV. We can't see you. We don't know your name, but that voice has got to stick out. Number two, I don't know if I trust some random local TSA employee to tell me what should be efficient, given how inefficient TSA actually operates. Now, I don't put that all on the staff. I put some of it, however, on the staff. That somehow you manage to run as slowly as you run. They're doing hard work. I don't want to get mad at them, and I'm not. But let's not pretend that the TSA is the most efficient agency there is.
There are things that you can do to weed out where there are weaknesses. This is not one of them. It's just chaos.
It doesn't sound like chaos to send an email with 5 bullet points back. To me, that doesn't sound like it's chaotic. Now, as I've said, I don't necessarily think it's wise for every employee to have to respond to this. Depends on their role, because you don't want to you don't want to be like, oh yeah, last week I was able to uncover a conspiracy from a terrorist organization, and I got ready to go after them. We didn't do it yet, though. We're still in the planning stages, because then, the terrorists might find out about it, which was kind of a point I think the TSA employee wanted to make about that Doge email.
Boom, you lose your job, and you're not going to get unemployment, because if it's a resignation, then you can't apply for unemployment. If you are getting dismissal of people that are not complying to this ridiculous email, you're losing bodies that are going to directly impact your safety and security at an airport. What if this does happen? What's going to happen to my family?
What's going to happen to your family? I guess the same thing that would have happened if you were otherwise terminated. I don't understand why, again, we don't know what this particular TSA employee does. Why can't you just respond to the email? And they'll be responsible for responding to that email. I mean, Sean Duffy, the transportation secretary, was on this morning on Fox News. And despite some departments, like at the Pentagon, saying, yeah, don't respond to this, that was not the take from Sean Duffy.
I mean, every department is different. So if you're a SEAL Team 6 or a CIA agent or FBI agent, you might say, listen, that's not appropriate to actually respond to that email. But at DOT, I have no problem with the employees here saying, what did you do last week? And if you can't come up with 5 things that you did, maybe you shouldn't be employed here. So again, this is an easy task. It happens in the private sector all the time. And so I wanted our employees to actually engage and talk about what they did. And I think this whole movement, Bill, is potentially going to make people go, I'm going to come to work earlier. I'm going to stay later. I'm going to look at what Donald Trump wants me to accomplish because he won the election. And I'm going to fight and work to make sure I help him accomplish that, because I'm a public servant. I don't work for a party or a union or a think tank. I actually work for the president.
Now, I mostly agree with what he said. Where I disagree is that people are going to act because they want to help Donald Trump. I don't know if that's the case. And frankly, I don't need it to be the case. I understand that when you're dealing with bureaucrats, no matter who the president is, no matter which party they're from, you're going to have a percentage that just disagrees with that person, didn't vote for that person. Doesn't mean that they can't do good work. But I certainly agree with this idea that if you know your job is being looked at, that you might lose that job, you can respond in one of 3 ways, right? One way is just not do anything differently. Just keep doing what you're doing and hope either what happens is that you keep your job, or if you lose it, okay, I lost my job. You just don't really care, which is not a great employee. But I suppose you can just do nothing. You could sabotage and get stressed out over this and then end up losing your job. Or you can go overboard in proving yourself. in showing the value that you bring to the organization, to the role that you happen to be in, whatever it is that you do, making sure that everyone knows that if they were, in fact, to fire you, they're losing not just a great employee, but they're going to have to pick up the slack for the work that you were doing because someone's got to do it, and no one else but you is capable of really doing it the way that it's been done. And you either sink or swim, essentially. And I think most people have it in them to step up and prove that their value themselves as a worker. I think most people can do that. The problem is most people don't. Most people don't. And I've been in a number of workplaces where you see people who are very capable, but just don't seem all that motivated. And I don't know why. Maybe it's because they have a bad manager not motivating them. Maybe it's because they don't have a clear game plan as to what they're supposed to do and why they're doing it, which I guess ties back to the bad manager. But there are also people who just don't like their job and they're just showing up because they need a job. They have to pay their rent. And those are the worst kinds of employees, especially when we're talking about employees that we hire and pay for. And that's the best way to think about all of these jobs. We're the actual boss. Now, if you had your own business, regardless of what the business was, and you had an employee who just kind of showed up, that's about it. Didn't seem to care all that much, didn't really put their head down and work all day, didn't give it their all, they just showed up. Would you want to continue to pay that person? Just if all is equal, meaning you're not going to have a hard time replacing. But you're paying good money as a salary. Would you want to hire that person? No, of course not. You would want to get rid of them. So why would we put up with that to the extent that it exists within the federal government? I'm not going to pretend that every single federal worker is like that. I don't believe that. But I know that a lot of them are because I know that in the private sector, a lot of them are. We all can point to those people. Look at your own workplace. And maybe you're lucky where you currently are with a company that doesn't have any of them left because they've been weeded out. But go back, because I can certainly go back to previous workplaces that I've been in and immediately point to the people who just kind of were uninspired, did the work, and then went home, did the bare minimum. We all know people like that, and I don't want to pay for someone like that. And it was kind of a point that Ralph Norman, the congressman from South Carolina, was making on Fox.
There are roughly 3 million federal workers. The price tag that the taxpayers pay is right at $271 billion a year. Is it too much to ask for them to verify why they're making an average salary of $106,000 a year? Do you think in the private sector that single mom who is working 2 jobs at a restaurant can't justify where she was, or the hygienist at the dentist's office can't verify what, how many patients they saw? The absurdity and I guess the arrogance of the workers who says that's a heavy lift is what's wrong with that's what the Americans are sick and tired of. It's not their money. We're the ones who are paying the bills. We have a right to know.
Now, he's, of course, 100% correct. I understand why someone might feel like it's demeaning when it comes from someone who doesn't know you. And no one knows Elon Musk, right? He's not doing this to his direct employees, although I imagine he's done something similar to this in his personal companies. But it seems impersonal in a way. Like, who are you to question my work ethic? And the people who get upset in that way are the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who work the hardest. But I imagine there's also a whole bunch of people who are happy to brag about the work that they're doing, who are happy to step up and say, yeah, no, this is my work, and I'm grateful for it. So I'm questioning whether or not one person from the local TSA, some unnamed man or woman who you don't even know what their responsibilities are, is accurate when they say, oh, it's chaotic. It's so chaotic. Let's find out what else is trending.
What's trending in Seattle?
So I've been noticing something, and I notice it every year around this time, almost in the exact same way, where you go out in the morning. For me now, and I can't remember, Jackson, if I told you, but I adopted a dog last April. His name is D'Artagnan. And he gets up at about 5:30, but every once in a while he wants to sleep in. And today, thankfully, he wanted to sleep in a little bit. And so I got up at 6. And I took my time before we went outside. And I noticed this morning, as we got closer to 6:30, it was getting a little bit brighter. Just a little tiny bit brighter than it has been in the past at that time. And it's at that moment you think to yourself, oh, what's today's date? February 24th? And you know that daylight saving time is coming. You know that it's on its way. And that small little acknowledgement that March 9th is what, about 2 weeks away or so. The small, tiniest little acknowledgement of that. And then the realization that, oh man, it's not as dark right now that I'm out. Boy, does that put you in a good mood. At least it does to me, or as good of a mood as I'm capable of. I'm not really capable of being all that happy as a deeply miserable person. But even for me, I was like, yeah, I feel a lot better. And weirdly, you feel just like a little bit of an extra pep in your step, like just a little bit more energy. And I've not had a problem with energy. I thought I've been feeling really great, but then I was like, ooh, I'm feeling just a little bit better. Just a little tiny bit better because it's so close to that time of year where we finally don't have to be miserable and dark and wet. Now, we'll still be wet, but we won't be as dark and wet and cold. The cold is gone. We obviously today still do up and through tonight and into tomorrow a pretty significant windstorm, but it's not all that cold outside. And I like the idea that soon I'll be able to leave this studio and it'll still be light outside. It's incredibly difficult leaving at 6 o'clock or 6:05, whenever it is I leave, and have it be pitch black outside because you get home, you're like, man, it's already time for bed. Night's already kind of over because it's just so dark outside. But now, getting closer to 7 o'clock sunsets, oh my gosh, just the idea of it makes me feel so good. Now, for anyone who thinks we're going to make any kind of legislative move on this, of making this permanent, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It failed back in 2022, and it's going to fail yet again in 2025. There doesn't seem to be a consensus on this. From a state level, you can't make any changes unless you get the congressional approval. You're not going to get that. So if you're hoping, it might be against hope, that we're going to make this deal permanent, it's just not going to happen. So instead of getting bummed out about that, just accept the fact that it's not going to happen, and we've got a few months of some pretty terrific weather coming. Now, we're going to have to face the storm a little bit for a bit, in that it's going to be wet for the next month or so. But after that, man, things start to get a lot better. So much better. And just the promise of it has put me in a weirdly good mood. And maybe it's also because Joy Reid got fired that I'm in a good mood. In fact, let's find out what else is trending.
What's trending in the media?
At long last, a moment we knew was going to get here. We just didn't know when. And yet, over the weekend, we were all delighted to learn of news from MSNBC, which is very rare for us to be delighted of anything that comes out of that network, except in this case, Joy Reid got the pink slip. Her show is canceled. Her final show will be sometime this week. She's not the only one who is now out. We also learned today that Lester Holt is stepping aside from his nightly news role. Joining me on the line is our go-to when it comes to having a lot of fun at the expense of media personalities in left-wing media. Curtis Houck, managing editor over at Newsbusters. Welcome back.
Always a pleasure. This is one of those days where the late, great Rush Limbaugh would say, having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have.
We really shouldn't have this much fun. And generally, I don't like to see people in media lose their jobs. Just generally. However, I always have the exceptions, and Joy Reid, who is a rabid racist, is in that group of exceptions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Joy Reid is, along with maybe Al Sharpton, is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, racial arsonists to ever set foot inside a TV studio and speak to a channel carried in millions of homes. And the reason I say that, of course, carried in millions of homes, is because very few of them, as we've seen, actually turn the dial to MSNBC while she's on. Folks may forget, I think what's really important to remember, the only reason that Joy Reid has a full-time show, or soon to be had one, was because of Chris Matthews. Laura Bassett alleged that Chris Matthews said some things to her one time, and Chris Matthews was Me Too'd and ushered away and replaced by Joy Reid. That's why we're in this position. And then it was clear that she was not ready for this. She's already been canceled once. This is her second show that she has lost. She used to have a daytime show back in 2014, 2015, I want to say, in the mid-afternoon on MSNBC, and that got the axe too. So, yikes. You've lost 2 shows now.
Oh, poor Joy Reid. So the good news, however, is she has time to find the hacker finally who broke onto her account and posted all those homophobic jokes at long last.
I know. Now that, O.J. Simpson has left us, he's no longer able to find the real killers. Joy Reid is still with us, so she can go about finding the real hackers. I'm very interested to see what she has to say. The reporting from fellow progressive Oliver Darcy was that the announcement with MSNBC executives that the team behind the camera would also be losing their jobs did not go over well. But I look back at the years of just utter insanity. I mean, she really was a Mad Libs kind of fill in the blank type liberal, thinking up the craziest things to say about Republicans. She came into this job, kind of towards the end of the pandemic. So there were all sorts of things, saying that Republicans are homicidal and that they don't want to stay alive. And the only kind of black people that Republicans respect are ones that work in factories. She said one time that Republicans would like to make COVID liquid form and then inject it into people. I mean, just the most insane things you could possibly think of. Joy Reid has said it. She's one of the people that I actually think, Jason, the most important thing that the listeners need to take away here is she's one of the people that actually believed the things that she was saying. It's very clear that she was a true believer in spouting off hatred. Whereas I'm here to tell you, some of these folks are actually quite nice people. And it's kind of disingenuous that when the light goes off, they're actually very civil kind of people. But when the light goes on, they'll accuse you of being a terrorist.
But Joy Reid is just that 24. That's just who she is 24/7.
Exactly. You look at her TikTok account and a lot of the things that she says on her free time, and it matches exactly what's on the show. So on the one hand, you can say she's very genuine. What you see is what you get. What you hear is what you get. But at the same time, it's unadulterated, just completely unfiltered, racial supremacy, venomous nonsense.
Yeah. And this is part of a larger shakeup at MSNBC. We can tell you Alex Wagner's show is over. She's the one who had a show that no one realized she was the host of. And then Rachel Maddow comes back.
Lost a second show.
Yeah.
She's also been canceled a second time, I should tell you as well. So not a good day for second chances.
Yeah, poor Alex. The replacement show for MSNBC, in the Joy Reid slot at least, will be a weekend show that is hosted by Michael Steele, I believe Alicia, who was the...
Menendez.
Oh, yes. As you say, Goldbar's Menendez, and Simone Sanders Townsend. That's going to be curious.
Correct. Yeah, it's going to be...
I don't know how else to explain it.
It's going to be a mess. I mean, Michael Steele has said all kinds of crazy things. Alicia Menendez, she claims to be a very serious journalist. It's like Paul, Jorge Ramos's daughter Paola tries to do the same sort of thing. You're like, no one's believing you. And Simone Sanders, I mean, she does. You don't really need to say a whole lot about her because everybody kind of understands what you're getting there.
Mm-hmm. The other big,
I don't think it's going to do well.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to fail just as poorly or perform as poorly as Joy Reid's show performed, which is odd because MSNBC does reasonably well in the ratings in the context of the other cable news networks outside of Fox News, which is clearly the big winner. But CNN has been in a distant third, fourth, fifth sometimes, depending on the day part. MSNBC, because it knows what it is, it has its identity as an uber liberal network. That's all it does. It gets a good amount of viewers. Joy Reid just never really connected, and yet she was in that position for a long time. We're running low on time, so just let's quickly talk. NBC Nightly News anchor Lester Holt made his announcement today that he is going to be stepping aside. He's staying on Dateline, but this is the second big nightly news anchor who's stepping down outside of the last one was Norah O'Donnell.
Yeah, I mean, Lester Holt, I think if you tried to rank them in terms of their partisanships, Nora is definitely infinitely more partisan than Lester Holt. Lester Holt stepped into the void after the Brian Williams scandal. He had been a weekend fixture for quite a long time on both Today Show and Nightly News. Dylan Byers of Puck reported this late last year along with the Nora News, predicting that this would happen. This is kind of the Hoda Kotb move. He says it's time to step away when really it's a kind of cost-cutting measure where these, $15, $20 million salaries that these folks had been making just are not financially possible any longer. So I think that's a lot of what's going on there. Look for Tom Yamas, who cut his teeth reporting on the Trump campaign for ABC News in the 2015-2016 campaign to probably take that spot.
We'll see who is going to be the actual replacement. We'll see. I'm fingers crossed that Curtis Houck will finally get his at least weekend show to talk about the wonderful world of cable news. I'm hoping, Curtis.
One day.
Newsbusters.com. Go there now. You can check out all of the work, or newsbusters.org. Go there now. You can check out all the work that Curtis does. He has to watch all this stuff every single day, every waking moment of his life. And so let's at least reward him for the torture that he's putting himself through by giving him a follow on X, but then going to newsbusters.org. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure, my friend.
You're listening to The Jason Rantz Show. When we come back, it'll be time for the big local. We take a trip to Richland where the mayor's getting in trouble for supporting Doge. Here's something most people don't know. Every dealer in the country pays the exact same price for factory vehicles down to the penny. If one dealer offers a lower price, they're likely making up for it somewhere else, like giving you less for your trade-in or charging you a higher interest rate. At the Sunset Auto family, they focus on what you get, not just what you pay. And you just get more at Sunset.
And now here's Growing Your Wealth, presented by Madrona Financial Services. Here's Brian Evans.
For many people, they'll be visiting their CPA soon to get their taxes done. Now, a lot of people think that their CPA and their financial advisor work closely together, or that their CPA is maybe someone they can turn to for investment advice. One of the issues with that, it's not that CPAs do not want to help you with your investments. I know that when I was just a CPA back when, before I was licensed, I really did want to talk to my clients, but I wasn't allowed to. I was not allowed to give specific investment advice. That was a legality because I wasn't registered at the time as a registered investment advisory rep, and so I couldn't do it. Another thing was my focus as a CPA was kind of looking through the rearview mirror. I was looking at last year before, doing those returns, making sure those numbers were right and all of that. It was not looking through the windshield. I was not doing projections for my clients, looking 10, 20, 30 years into the future. That just wasn't the focus. And since I wasn't licensed, let's say 25, 30 years ago, I wasn't really current on the products and the different investment options, and I wasn't well versed in that. So most CPAs probably would put themselves in that boat. That's not what they do. They're not licensed to do it. Even if they knew all the stuff about all the products, they couldn't really offer that as a suggestion. So that's why 20 plus years ago I got licensed. So when you're talking about your investments with your CPA, understand that they probably are not licensed to even give that advice. And so working with someone like Madrona Financial can really help that CPA. We speak the same language because we're also CPAs.
Even the mightiest of trees can be blown over if they don't have strong enough roots. The same is true with your investment plan. Can your plan withstand a financial storm? Go to MadronaFinancial.com and click on the Get Started button to request your Rooted Wealth Analysis. You can also click on the chat button and ask us anything. We have a searchable library with answers to your questions. Visit MadronaFinancial.com.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose, and millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz. If you act quickly, you can take advantage of an amazing deal, courtesy of the Synthetic Turf Northwest team. If you go to their website, syntheticturfnorthwest.com, you'll see what you've been missing, which is technology and a team that can put forward the best turf you can imagine so that you no longer have to slave over that lawn of yours only to be able to enjoy it part of the year. You want to be able to enjoy it every day. Doesn't matter if it's raining one night, you get to use it the next day if you want. But right now, with your current lawn, unfortunately, you're dealing with muddy spots. If you got dogs, you're dealing with little dead patches. But when you get synthetic turf, guess what? Not only does it look amazing all year round, you get to enjoy it all year round. SyntheticTurfNorthwest.com. When you mention my name, you can save up to $1,000. This is a company that's locally owned. Their owner, Mike, man, he's passionate about turf. And he's passionate because he gives people their space back. And he wants to be a part of that. You will get to use it all year long. Your kids and pets will love it too. You can host your neighbors and friends for barbecues again and never have to be worried about the condition of your lawn. SyntheticTurfNorthwest.com. Go there now. Check out their work, and I'm certain you're going to be impressed. Seriously, go. SyntheticTurfNorthwest.com. This hour is brought to you by the Northwest Safe Company.
Olympia, Sammamish, Lakewood, Bellevue.
This is the Big Local on the Jason Rantz Show.
Bellingham, Kirkland, Z-Town.
Stories about you, not about Seattle.
Hey, look at that. 4:30 on a weekday afternoon. That means it's time for the Big Local. Brought to you by Alpine Specialty Services, online at alpineclean.com. This is the part of the show where we completely ignore all the stories coming out of Seattle and instead focus our attention on the communities you live in and care about most. And we start in the city of Richland, where the mayor there, Teresa Richardson, who I think is going to be on the show tomorrow, she is taking some heat from some while being praised by others because of a post on social media in support of Doge and Elon Musk. It's weird to be upset about a mayor who says she supports cutting waste. I can't quite find myself in a position to say, how dare you save our tax dollars? How dare you? The post was put up not too long ago, a little over a week, and it happened right before you saw the Hanford nuclear site get hit with the potential layoffs. And obviously Richland, because of its location, there might be some folks who would be a little, I don't know, touchy on this. She wrote on Facebook, and by the way, this is a private Facebook account, not that it matters in this context, but she didn't even post it like publicly. It's not even that bad. Are you listening to Elon Musk? He's being so transparent. How can you doubt what he's telling us? Oh, how dare she? Can you believe she wrote? I was not prepared for that. You know, I take back all my defense.
I'm glad I was sitting down.
Yeah, this is oof. Now, you know, we're talking about it in the context of Richland, so let's be clear about, you know, the pushback was receiving more than 460 reactions and 420 comments. That's not that much. But for Richland, I suppose this is maybe a little bit, I don't know, Tri-City Herald looks at this story and says, ooh, this is a scorcher. And she said later of Elon Musk, I'm really grateful that he's willing to do this. Now, the pushback is what you would expect it to be. A bunch of leftists saying, how dare we give this kind of power to an evil billionaire? And then on the other hand, the people who are support is exactly what you think. I'm so glad we're giving all of this responsibility to a not so greedy and not so evil billionaire who actually knows what it is he's talking about, knows what it is he's doing. So Leo, a city council member, Leo Perales, said, it's refreshing, it's innovative, it's inconvenient. He's looking to make government better. Some dude named James, it absolutely boggles my mind how people are passionately opposed to uncovering government fraud. Thankfully, they're the minority. But then you got the people like Annie. It's just a matter of time until it impacts the people you represent. The foundation of Richland is built off of federal spending. Doge management is wildly unconstitutional in determining federal spending without congressional approval. I mean, has there been a court that declared it unconstitutional?
Well, that's typical Annie. She's such an alarmist.
Annie's just all over the place all the time. And then then Leslie. The worst part about Leslie, don't know if it's a man or a woman because they didn't include.
Maybe it isn't one of either.
I just want a pronoun, or I just need personal pronouns. It could be they, them, for all I know. We all want waste to be removed from the federal government, Leslie says, although I suspect that's not actually the case. You know how I kind of feel confident? You know why I feel confident about that?
Why?
Because they've not done it up until recently. Was there waste last year?
I think so.
A decade ago?
Yeah.
2 decades ago?
Yeah.
The founding of our country?
Probably some, yeah.
Some, at some point. You're like, okay. Well, have they cut any of it? They kind of told us it can't be done, which is weird because that's exactly what Elon Musk is doing. Quote, it's how they're doing it that is wrong. They must follow the Constitution and judge orders. What does it say in the Constitution about cutting wasteful spending? Anything? Which amendment is that? Is it a clause? Is that what the Establishment Clause is?
Maybe.
Establishing how to cut government waste? I thought it was about religion.
Now I'm convinced Leslie's a woman, but
yeah,
it's not what you're saying. It's how you're saying
They must follow the Constitution and judges' orders. They are doing neither. They're hurting real people, not only here, but in other countries as well. Shutting down agencies and freezing dollars without understanding the consequence and fallout is very irresponsible. There's no plan. Just slash and burn. I like that this caught the attention of the Tri-City Herald. I really do. This is a story. Some people are reacting on both sides of the Doge commentary. Can you believe that? I thought everyone was on the same page. MSNBC, they're all mad. Fox, they all love it. What's going on here? So we'll talk with the mayor of Richland tomorrow. I'm kind of curious. I imagine, again, for the city of Richland, because it's a smaller city, obviously, that maybe they don't expect this kind of, I don't even want to call it blowback, because it seems there's just as much response and support than there is against it. Meanwhile, speaking of pushback, some folks in Bonnie Lake are pretty upset. I think my former producer, Peyton, is leading the charge here, because he's in Bonnie Lake, and he's been talking about wanting to get more involved politically. But according to the Tacoma News Tribune, there are a bunch of neighbors who oppose a development bringing in 19 homes not far from Lake Bonnie. But you have 500 petitioners online opposing the project, complaining about the project, saying it's going to remove trees, and they love trees. They love them. I mean, they're most passionate about trees when it means more homes will come into a neighborhood. That's when they're especially passionate about trees. Or whenever any kind of development comes in that they don't like, what about the trees? But prior to that, the trees. It's a tree. It is what it is. Here's one resident, Ewing Fox, says there's been no consideration of the people who already live here or the environment. They always throw in the environment, which just say you don't want more housing in your small, tight-knit community. Just say that.
I respect
okay
that
with
more. Yeah, sure.
I understand it. That's really what this is about. What about the tree? You don't care about the trees. You just don't want more neighbors.
This area is the original area of Bonnie Lake. When Bonnie Lake became an entity, this was where it started. Okay. And this is what we're trying to protect.
Oh, yeah.
They're proposing now to put in 19 homes on smaller lots than the city has allowed previously.
Okay, no, they're smaller lot. Okay. I can see why he's so passionate as he talks with TNT.
And with a road, which is now just an easement back to this wooded property. There's been no thought for the impact of traffic and no thought to the impact of the...
Okay, it's 19 houses, right? How much traffic impact could there be? Let's just assume each household has 2 cars, right? So just under 40. And it won't even be that. Let's say 1.5 cars, right? Some homes will have 1, others will have 2. So let's just go with like 30. the road can handle it in Bonnie Lake. Bonnie Lake's not that small. And this part of Bonnie Lake is not that tiny. Come on.
The animals or the vegetation that's in the area, and no thought to the impact on the residents that already live in this area.
Stop talking about the vegetation, please. But what about the rare snake species that slithers around?
The blue-breasted whippoorwillow.
It's always like that. But you don't care about that. And again, I don't know why people can't just accept that, number one, not everyone wants new development in their communities, and number two, it's okay to not want new development in your communities. The only thing I get annoyed with or push back against is if you're complaining about a lack of quote-unquote affordable housing, and then you get in the way of a project like this, or concept, whatever it is, then I'll call you out. The tree people, generally, especially in the Seattle area, are the ones who are calling for more housing. But also what they mean is just not in spots we don't want it. No. Can't have it both ways. Pick a lane, man.
They want to have their cake and eat it too.
Yeah, you can't have your tree and cut it down or something like that. You can't do that. But if you're just I want to keep, and Edmonds went through this and is still going through this, Mukilteo as well. We want to keep it the size that it is. Who doesn't understand that? Who doesn't understand that? And with some exception, who doesn't believe that for their own community or neighborhood? Most people do. So why do we feel shamed into...
I find it a much more persuasive argument than saying, I don't want to cut down a tree.
Yeah, the reason why I moved to Bonnie Lake, Edmonds, Mukilteo, wherever, is because it's a close-knit community where you know all your neighbors and you don't need too many, traffic cops. You don't need too many stop signs. You don't need too many stop lights. That's a totally normal position. And, I will say, I understand, I guess, why people like this will complain about the issue and bring up, the vegetation or the salamander, is because a small group of radical housing activists yell at you and call you a NIMBY. You're a NIMBY. Yeah, everyone's a NIMBY. Everyone's a NIMBY. Again, who even wants to deal with construction near their homes? Even if you like what comes of it. Who wants that? No one. It's okay to say that. It's okay. Here's another resident at a council meeting.
The city of Bonnie Lake has approved the destruction of a rich urban forest to house an estimated 50 to 60 people.
Yeah, and first of all, that sounded like Patty Murray. Second of all, it wasn't Patty Murray. Third of all, okay. Is that a persuasive argument? Or coming in and say, no, I like our community small. I don't want another neighbor. Neighbors are awful. I finally got a good one. I'm 87 years old. I finally found one that I like. Doesn't have any kids or anything. No animals, nothing. Just a shut-in, actually. Actually, it could be a serial killer. But I'm fine with that. Because he doesn't bother anybody. I like it. Just hold that position. It's totally okay. It's time to push back and shut up all the folks on the radical left in the housing community. Finally, Everett Herald had a story today about how the Stanwood Camano School Board are quote-unquote plagued by ideological strife. And I'm reading this story and I'm trying to figure out where's the plagued by ideological strife part. Because it sounds like all they're saying is that there's some people who hold one position and they're in conflict with people who hold a different position. Isn't that what you're supposed to expect on any school board, right? Any government group of individuals who are elected into office, they don't always just agree on everything. And yet this article says, school board members Betsy Foster, Al Schreiber, and Stephen King have repeatedly been asked by community members to resign. The trio has ties to local Republican activist groups. School board elections in Washington are nonpartisan by state law. Did you know that? All the school board members, except for these three Republicans, are just nonpartisan. And they have no connections whatsoever to any activist groups, including like the Democrat Party or Fuse Washington and all those other groups that end up pushing for them. Outside of that group of people, everyone else is just totally nonpartisan. So you're mad that they're tied to Republican groups? Okay. You know they do get to be Republicans, right?
Not in this state.
Not here, not in Camano Island. School board divisions have resulted in infighting, the messy departure of the school district superintendent, and allegations that the board has routinely broken state law. Now, they say they've reviewed hundreds of emails for the story. Hundreds. Not thousands, just hundreds. That's one public disclosure request that I get back. And by read, I'm sure they mean skim. They're not reading all the emails. Again, I know this from personal experience. Now, one of the issues is that a teacher was accused of not responding to a first grader's parents' concerns. Then they did an investigation. They said the school handled it appropriately. That's what this is about. Again, I can't help but wonder, this is all like the news that's not really news segment for Big Local. So a school board has members who disagree politically on things, and they make that public and known, okay?
Stop the presses.
Stop. Oh, no. I get those evil Republicans, those school board members being associated with Republican activist groups. Okay. Oh, no. 1-800-465-8770 if you want to send a text. In fairness, the Everett Herald, I think, fired like everybody, and they only have interns now writing for them. So I'm assuming they're all young interns and they're all liberal. When we come back, you pick the news. Story number 1. Did scientists find the cellular master switch capable of reversing aging? Do you actually want your age reversed? Or story number 2, a left-wing comedian explains why he performed at the Kennedy Center even after Donald Trump took over. Oh my gosh. Can't believe it. Which story should we discuss, make fun of, enjoy? 1-800-465-8770 for your texts.
William is one of millions of Americans who uses GoodRx to save on the cost of their prescriptions.
My oldest daughter, Camilla, 2 days old, she had to have open heart surgery. All of a sudden, she's on 5 different medications. It adds up at the end of the month. Me and the pharmacist got so tight. She said, GoodRx save you a lot of money. Saving that extra $200-300 a month. We're able to do all these extra activities, so it puts less stress on our household, and it puts less stress on our pockets.
Download the free app or visit GoodRx.com and start saving today. GoodRx user compensated for their time. GoodRx is not insurance, but can be used instead of insurance.
For 70 years, we've been known as the Humane Society of the United States. But as the challenges animals face have grown, so have we. We are now called Humane World for Animals. And with you on our side, we are going to end animal cruelty around the globe. Join us. Humane World for Animals. The end of animal cruelty.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here for Alpine Specialty Services. When you mention my name, you save $75 on one of your next services. All you have to do is go to alpineclean.com, and when you go there, you'll realize that they do a lot. Like a lot. Air duct cleaning, carpet cleaning, to HVAC installation, so much more. And yeah, saving $75, that's great. That's legit savings. But understand you're going with a company that actually treats you well, the way you ought to be treated. There's a reason why they've got over 10,000 5-star online reviews. If you think that's easy in 2025, where people love to complain about everything, nitpick on everything, yeah, think again. That's how good they are. That is their mission. They have tenured technicians who come with a relentless attention to detail. And I can tell you that from personal experience because I'm a customer of Alpine Specialty Services. And I think once you become one, you'll stay one for life. Head on over to alpineclean.com today. Schedule your service. Mention my name. Save $75. alpineclean.com.
Tired of hearing scary radio ads about the IRS? Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000 or $500,000, we have a solution. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS with zero risk to you. We have over 1,000 5-star reviews on Google and an A+ with a BBB. End your tax nightmare today by visiting TRA.com or call 800-583-6580. That's 800-583-6580.
Lowe's knows that your business is built on speed and trust. That's why the Lowe's Pro Desk is here to get you what you need the moment you need it. We'll help you plan your project, calculate your materials, and pivot when your job takes an unexpected turn. And with our Pro-only checkout and dedicated Pro parking, you have what you need to tackle your job and be back on the job in no time. Just visit us at the Pro Desk. Lowe's knows pros. We help. you save.
Ready to order?
Yes. We're earning unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with a Capital One Saver card. So let's just get one of everything.
Everything?
Fire everything. The Capital One Saver card is at table 27, and they're earning unlimited 3% cash back.
Yes, Chef! This is so nice.
Had a feeling you'd want 3% cash back on dessert.
Ooh, tiramisu.
Earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining and entertainment with the Capital One Saver card. Capital One, what's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Things are just better when you switch to Cricket. The sun shines a little brighter. Happy music starts randomly playing. Best of all, you can get iPhone 13 for just $29.99. With the ultra-bright Super Retina display and up to 19 hours of video playback, all on Cricket's super-fast 5G network. See? Isn't that better? Smile, you're on Cricket.
Requires new account and port in on $60 plan. First service charge, tax to its sale. $25 activation fee. Terms and restrictions apply. Cricket 5G is not available everywhere. See store for details.
You picked the topic on the Jason Rantz Show.
Indeed you do. But it was a tie. But we did get a very nice, sweet request from the 425. Please tell me the story about how I could get younger. And so I think we should go with that one. And I've been thinking about this myself as someone who's about to turn 29 for the 14th time next Tuesday, right? Whenever March 4th is. I can understand why people want to, quote unquote, get younger. And by getting younger, all we mean is not breaking down as quicker. Because, you know, the older you get, you want to prolong your life. You want the longevity to actually matter. And so you want everything to function normally. Because who wants to live to 110 years old if you can't move, right? I mean, if you're just like miserable the entire time. So there was a study that was just done out of Osaka, Japan. And they think maybe they found something that acts essentially like a master switch, controlling whether your cells behave like they're either, you know, in their prime or if they're kind of ready to retire. And it's a protein that they found called AP2A1. And according to the research by Osaka University, research that focuses on what happens to human cells as they age, they think that by manipulating this one specific protein, you could reverse cellular aging. So biologically, you'll be turning back the clock. You're still getting older, but your cells won't be breaking down. The mitochondria will be just as, you know, pumped up and filled with verve. They say these zombie-like cells, sensient cells, end up developing as we grow older, and they accumulate. And then they kind of enter in what's known as a permanent growth arrest, meaning it's not going to grow anymore. They don't die, though, but they don't function properly. That's the problem. They grow very large. They end up leading to inflammation. And what it ends up doing is contribute to age-related diseases. And, you know, if I've been spending a lot of time like listening to podcasts and whatnot in the longevity space, like the Dave Asprey's of the world, and you'll hear concern over inflammation constantly. That's all you hear. Just like your inflammatory reaction. Like, I was so inflamed. And the inflammation leads to things from something as, it could be serious, arthritis, to Alzheimer's. So the thinking is, if you can essentially turn off or reverse the inflammation, you can have, quote unquote, younger cells. And they say what makes this exciting, this research, is that the amount of AP2A1, this new protein in sensient cells, because of how many you can reduce that from, researchers could reverse many hallmarks of cellular aging, according to studyfinds.org. They say the rejuvenated cells shrunk back to normal size, resumed division, and showed other signs of youthfulness. Conversely, when researchers artificially increased AP2A1 levels in young cells, they prematurely displayed characteristics of old cells. Isn't that interesting? It's almost like the reverse when you introduce more of it. So what they say is the findings suggest that AP2A1 expression modulates cell states between senescence and rejuvenation. Now, they say to understand how significant this finding is, you have to look at how cells react when they age. And so what this does is, from a cellular aging perspective, it either at least temporarily pauses it and then starts to reverse. So essentially, again, the swelling of the senescent cells stops. And when you can stop the swelling or the inflammation, you get a lot of the benefits. Now, they're not all that far along into this research. I mean, they've got some good information. It's obviously published in a journal called Cellular Signaling, which is, I'm a subscriber. And I purchased they only come out once a quarter, but I prepaid for the entire year.
It's on my coffee table.
I get it. See, that's your mistake. You should get it on your Kindle. That's how I get it put out. I get it in the Kindle, and then I have it read back all the articles to me because I can't pronounce, even in my head, some of the terms that they use. And I'm not entirely sure that the Kindle says it correctly, though. So hopefully you don't have to test me on it. But they say what this can end up doing is be used to hyper-target either people based on their disease and how far the disease is gone, or just simply based on their age. Because when you think about aging cells, they're always aging. You as a human being, you're always aging. So if they can get into that and promise you, the quote-unquote fountain of youth, would people actually do it? How invasive is it? I don't know. They're not that far along. How far do you think people are willing to go for this? Because my guess is pretty far. Like really far. Even if it doesn't mean you're going to live longer, but you just feel better, depending on, for your, quote unquote, for your age, I think people are willing to take a lot of pain and spend a whole lot of money. And that's the sad part about all of this. We'll be dead by the time they really perfect this and it actually matters and could make your life much better. I wonder if, centuries ago, I wonder if the caveman was seated there saying, "Rah, rah, rah, rah," and what he meant was, I'm so depressed that I'm not going to be alive at a time in which science develops into something that could keep me alive longer than, 20 years where I won't die from a splinter. Do you think there was a version of that? Because that's all I think of.
I don't know if they were sophisticated enough to think that.
How dare you? That's really offensive. Don't you watch some of the Geico commercials with the caveman?
Yeah.
They don't like that. They're not all like that. Okay? The more I think about it, the more depressed I get. Like something that you're suffering from now, like some cancers or something, will be completely eradicated in X amount of years after you're dead from that cancer. That's just depressing. Other than that, I'm feeling really good about getting older. 1-800-465-8770 for your texts. You're listening to The Jason Rantz Show.
Someone had a birthday.
Yep, 50. Can't believe it.
50 years of wisdom.
Great segue. We have health news, a CDC update.
Pneumococcal vaccination is now recommended for adults 50 or older. Says here, we're over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50.
I don't love those odds.
Same. Look what I found. Pfizer's Prevnar 20 is proven to help protect adults against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease in just 1 dose. And millions have already gotten it.
Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you have a severe allergy to its ingredients. A weakened immune system may lower your response. Common side effects include injection site pain and swelling, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138. Visit Prevnar20.com or talk to your doctor or pharmacist.
I'm on Prevnar20.com now, scheduling my appointment.
Good idea. And happy 50th.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here for Northwest Safe. They are an exclusive Liberty Safe dealer. That's a trusted brand in the safe industry. They're American made. And this means they offer you special pricing, rebates. They have first priority on having your favorite safe in stock and ready to purchase, from entry level to high end. Each of their safes offer dependable security features, clearly marked fire ratings. They're backed by limited lifetime warranties. They've got hundreds of safes on display. Northwest Safe is family owned. They've been operating since 1988. They've got 3 locations, including in Enumclaw and Spokane. They've got an expert sales team. You are in great hands when you're checking out their Liberty safes with Kale, David, or anyone from their sales team. They know what it is they're doing with Liberty Safes. NWSafe.com. Go there now. NWSafe.com.
When the hot water needs to be hot, when the drain needs to drain, when the toilet needs to flush, you need to do two things. Stop freaking and call Beacon. Beacon Plumbing, Heating, and Mechanical. On call and there when you need them most. 1-800-FREAKIN or beaconplumbing.net.
Cougar basketball is back.
These guys want to get better at basketball. They want to go as hard as they can in the game. They want to get their education. They want to be around each other and build a real family.
Coach Riley and the Cougs are ready.
We put in so much work all of our lives for this exact moment.
We are Wazoo. It's only on your home for Cougar basketball.
Catch the Cougs all season long on AM 770 KTTH.
The Armstrong and Getty Show.
It's that weird permissive paternalism that the left has, where they won't punish wrongdoing, but they will punish honest citizens because they have you under their control. It makes me insane.
That's disappointing. Armstrong and Getty, weekdays 6 to 9 a.m. 770 KTTH Seattle, 94.5 K233DT East Lake, 94.5 K233BU Seattle.
A truce could happen in the coming weeks. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. That's the prediction from French President Emmanuel Macron after meeting with President Trump today at the White House. He tells Fox's Brett Baer.
President Trump is a game changer. And I think he has the deterrence capacity of the U.S. to re-engage with Russia.
And Macron says he's spoken with European leaders, and many of them are ready to provide security guarantees. At the White House this afternoon, the president said,
"This is the right time. It may be the only time. You know, that's a very interesting and horrible situation, and that could evolve into a third world war. We're not going to let that happen."
The ceasefire appeals deal between Russia and Ukraine could include the deployment of European peacekeepers, which President Trump claimed Russia would accept. The Russian President Vladimir Putin said on state TV he has not talked in detail about ending the war in Ukraine with President Trump. A federal judge appointed by President Trump has denied a request from the Associated Press to immediately restore their old White House access.
D.C. federal judge Trevor McFadden said in his decision to deny a temporary restraining order that the AP wasn't facing a total denial of White House access. They can still go to press events. But he said as this moves forward, case law would probably be, quote, uniformly unhelpful to the White House. The judge also said while he thought an administration could block the White House Correspondents Association altogether, he also said the situation here did seem like viewpoint discrimination against the AP. The AP is arguing that the Trump administration's violating the First Amendment by denying them access to the Oval Office, Air Force One, and other areas because the AP won't call the newly renamed Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. 2020 Republican presidential hopeful Vivek Ramaswamy has announced he's running for governor of Ohio. America is listening to Fox News.
I've just been feeling so sluggish lately. You should try the Metamucil 2-Week Challenge. The Metamucil 2-Week Challenge? Yeah, Metamucil 4-in-1 Fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down. Start your daily routine now, and in 2 weeks, you could be feeling great. Well, it's been 2 weeks. How you feeling? Lighter and feeling great.
If you want to feel lighter by promoting digestive health, sign up to take the 2-week challenge at Metamucil.com. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Coach! The yellow light! God, I'm walking here!
Good afternoon and welcome to the Jason Rantz Show. We are here live on AM 770 KTTH. We are streaming on the KTTH smartphone app. Washington lawmakers fell for a fake news story and ended up creating a law on bail bond recovery agents that already exists. We'll talk with a Republican lawmaker who supported the effort. But first, it is a Monday, which means we got another outrageous burglary story, this time against a blind shop owner. And that's what's trending.
What's trending? Crime.
You know, if you're going to go after a shop owner, I imagine you're not looking for any kind of fight, right? You're trying to go for the quick in and out kind of instance. But when you target someone who's blind twice in just a few days, like, come on, guys. Come on. Really? You can't have any compassion whatsoever. You can't say, hey, maybe this is an unfair fight. Now, in this case, we're talking about James Janney. He's got a convenience store in downtown Seattle. It's been there for 41 years. And his business was broken into twice in just a few days. And as he tells Cairo 7 TV, like so many other business owners, he's just about had it with the city.
We need it to stop. We need the city council and the mayor. We need the governor of this state to take action.
Do not hold your breath. Because if they haven't acted by now, they're not going to act. And once you come to terms with that, the better you are, because you're going to have to do something else to protect your business. That's the reality. It's an unfortunate reality, but it's true. Now, he told Cairo 7 that the thieves destroyed specialized computers that he had. Specialized computers because of his blindness. They say it helps him navigate his business. Although now he's not going to be able to use the equipment. And it's my understanding equipment like this, which is highly specialized, is very expensive. Like very expensive. And he says it's going to cost him tens of thousands of dollars to fix. Not just the computers, but all the other damage that was done.
Broke into the hatch here and got into the cavity. I can't put anything in those cabinets because people keep breaking out the windows. We're tired of it. They cleaned out all of the lottery tickets completely. They destroyed the computer that was in there, and I just bought a new one. From what the estimates that I've gotten, we're looking at about $20,000. Wow. I'm going to have to pay for some of those tickets that were stolen, and there's nothing I can do about it.
And there's nothing I can do about it. And I imagine saying something like that, admitting something like that, is really difficult. We live in a city that loves to claim that it's compassionate. We hear them talk about their compassionate approach to homelessness, for example, which ironically means leaving people living out on the streets, surrounded by their own filth and inevitable death, early death. And yet when you have something like this, really nothing, not a peep. Now, some members of the Seattle City Council care. They do, some of them do. But too many don't. Too many don't. I thought that Seattle was all about protecting so-called marginalized communities. Do the blind count? Is that a marginalized community?
You would think so.
Right? And yet I don't hear anyone complaining. I don't hear anyone calling for, a protest of Seattle City Hall. When the reality is, people like this, let's just be honest, they're out on their own. They're on their own. And now they're out, significant amount of money. They're out the programming, the computers, the software that they use so this guy can operate a business as someone who happens to be blind. And it's just depressing. It's just completely depressing. And the thing is, he's not going to be victimized only these 2 times. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again and again and again. And no one seems to acknowledge on the left, the ones who put in place the policies that have led to this, no one seems to want to acknowledge that it's not getting better. Every once in a while you'll get a stat that gets kind of taken out of context or delivered disingenuously. Last week during the State of the City address, Bruce Harrell talked about how, violent crime is down, the number of homicides is down. Cool, it's February. Great. I hope it's down for the entire year. I hope we finally get down as close to zero as humanly possible. But that's not something to brag about right now when you've got other crimes that's continued to plague neighborhoods. It is already difficult being a business owner in Seattle. It's incredibly expensive. And on top of that, you're dealing with a downtown that's not what it used to be, only to then have this added on top of all your problems. And you would think that even just politically, the smart move would be to come out and at least pretend to care. Like, my bar at this point for politicians who are in charge, you don't even have to actually care. Just pretend that you do. Because the pretend can at least go a long way. Pretend to back the cops in going after the bad guys. Pretend to have support for judges to make the right decision and put these bad guys in jail. Pretend that you're talking with state lawmakers to see what else you can do in order to correct the situation. Just pretend. We can't even get that. Instead, what do we get? We get a joke about bringing the Sonics back, pissing off a bunch of people. That's what we get from the mayor of Seattle. The governor who said he cares about hiring more cops, that's good. He pretended to care about cops. How's that going?
All right.
Yeah. And that doesn't even have anything to do with the city of Seattle. That would be Washington State Patrol. But when you have people who show their support for police and push the idea that bad guys should be punished, it does start to change the culture around the lawlessness that's going on. But hey, beggars can't be choosers. We did get a joke about bringing the Sonics back. That bombed. That was a great joke. You missed it. You weren't here for that, Jackson.
I was here.
No, you weren't.
Yeah, I was.
No, you weren't. Were you? I thought you were out.
We talked about it on the show.
We did. I thought I talked about that to Ian.
No, I was here. Maybe you talked about it with him too, but we talked about it.
Well, his conversation with me was more
stimulating.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That I remember. You, I can't even remember. Were you here last week at all?
Yeah, I was here through Wednesday.
Working on this show?
Yes.
Did I see you?
Yeah, you saw me.
Okay. Last week?
Yeah. I mean, it's okay. I'm the middle child of my family, so I'm used to being forgotten about. But
I really don't have any memory of doing anything with you last week. And usually I have at least some anger that's left over.
I was going to say, for my
resentment.
sake, that's probably good that you don't remember anything.
Yeah, that's the best you've ever done. Are you mad that I only remember Ian and then Brady on Friday? Does that bother you?
I don't hold that against you.
Okay, thank you. Push the button.
What's trending? Let's get political.
So it's my understanding that Elon Musk has done nothing positive at all. He's contributed nothing to his work with the federal government. Nothing. Not even saving $1. He's literally done nothing, according to Adam Smith, the Democrat congressman from Bellevue, Seattle.
There's absolutely nothing helpful.
Nothing helpful. Absolutely. And there's something about his voice. I like Adam Smith, just for the record. I like him. I think he's smart. He has the most smarmy, condescending tone. And he's not always, I think obviously he sometimes intends it. He doesn't intend it, though. I've had conversations with him off air in which he still has this tone. And so, you know how some people are just naturally sarcastic or they have that look about them? Like, I have resting disinterest face. I can have a stimulating conversation with you, but by the look of my face, unless I'm putting on a show, I would seem like I'm bored to tears. I'm not bored to, well, sometimes I am, but I can't help it. That's just my resting face. Other people have resting, bad word face, mean person face. I have disinterest face. He has, as just a natural tone, smarminess, which, yeah, it served him well, I guess.
Kind of sounds like a Simpsons character.
He really does. He kind of sounds like Harry Shearer.
About what Elon Musk is doing and how he's doing. This doesn't have anything to do with government efficiency or effectiveness.
Nothing has nothing to do with that? Nothing. Not even a little bit. Again, nothing. Cutting funding to a transgender opera in Ireland. That didn't save us any money that we could have otherwise put to good use.
He's firing wide swaths of people based on nothing to do with how good they are at their job.
That's not true. That's not true. And I'm sure lots of good people who are good at their job get terminated. There are people who do jobs really well that we don't need them to do. That's the truth.
How important their job is. It just seems like a very, very random process to terrorize the federal workforce. And
oh yeah, now they're terrorized. it's not a random process. You know how when they come out and they tell us a little bit more about who gets terminated, and they all happen to be or seem to be ones who are part of their, test period. These are probationary staff members from, insert agency. Doesn't that indicate that it's not random?
Yeah.
If they're all probationary employees, that means a number of things, which includes, I certainly hope, that they're not the most important. It doesn't mean they're not good. But when companies have to downsize, Starbucks is going to let go 1,100 corporate workers. I'm sure most of them are really hard workers. I mean, they have awful taste in coffee, but I'm sure that they're good people, right? That whatever it is they do well. Doesn't mean that they are needed. And that kind of sucks, right? If you're the worker who really is working your tail off, but then you realize you're on the chopping block, because when you look just at the numbers, when you look just at the business, they say, yeah, we don't need this person right now. We just don't. Now, it's hard not to take it personally, right? You're of course going to take it personally, especially if you care about your job. You're going to take that personally. But it doesn't mean that the decision is not the correct one.
Undermine its ability to be effective, and also to really focus on loyalty to Trump, not on whether or not they're doing a good job, but do they sign up for loyalty to Trump? And that's not going to build an efficient and effective workforce.
Well, what has worked to build an efficient and effective workforce? Does anyone really think that right now we can say that this workforce is efficient and effective? Can we just as a blanket statement, can we make that? Honestly?
No.
So I'm not saying everything that was done up until this point was a total failure, of course. And I'm not even saying what Donald Trump is doing now will be a success. But you can't tell me that we should do nothing, that what's happening right now is just a complete and total waste of time, and that it's going to fail, when we've done things your way this entire time and it hasn't worked. Now, this idea that he's going to hire people who are loyal, as opposed to the presidents who hire people who are disloyal, it really doesn't make any sense. You want like-minded people. In some cases, it doesn't matter, right? You don't need that in certain positions. And as a texter pointed out in the last hour, they don't work for any party. These people are supposed to work for us. They're supposed to work for us. Civil servants work for the people, not a political party, was the text. And he's right. But it helps if they don't loathe the guy that they're working for, that you have a general similar outlook. Because otherwise, you're not really truly doing a job the way it needs to be done. And this is true of conservatives working under people like Joe Biden. You think there were a whole bunch of Republicans under Joe Biden who just loved their job?
No.
They probably loathed it. And I bet you they're doing a better job now than they did before. Now, is that the right thing? No, of course not. You should be working hard no matter what. No matter what, you should be working as hard as you can. Especially when you're taking a job, presumably because you feel called to this kind of civil service. But the idea that you shouldn't be hiring people who are like-minded, who agree with the agenda, is just so naive and it's dishonest and disingenuous. You know who works for Adam Smith? People who support Adam Smith. Now, is it possible that someone who loathes Adam Smith could do a good job? Sure. Are they doing the best job? Probably not. Not when you compare to someone who actually cares about the policies that Adam Smith holds. I mean, we've had the conversation with John Fetterman, right? The senator from Pennsylvania. It turns out he doesn't hate Jews, which upsets the progressives who worked for him. You know what they did? They quit. Why? Because they didn't agree with him. So should John Fetterman replace those positions with people who also disagree with him and loathe him for not hating Jews? I hope not. You want like-minded people. So what is the problem? Why is that okay, but this isn't? Any answers from anyone on the left who holds that silly position that people know is garbage, is nonsense?
It is trying to cripple the federal workforce. You would not go at making any sort of business more efficient and effective in this manner. I mean, they're firing oversight, they're firing inspector generals, they fired the chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Just real quickly, firing inspector generals. They didn't find a lot of the stuff that was going on that was shady, that was a misspending and abuse of our money. Not very great at inspecting in general. Kind of screwed that up. And if you're not uncovering all this garbage that's going on under your nose, yet you shouldn't hold that position. And you caught at the end, he fired the Joint Chiefs of Staff member. I can't believe it, because those are positions you hold forever, even if you have a completely different outlook on military issues. You're supposed to just keep that person there.
No general has ever been fired by a president, ever.
Ever. I think this really was the first time. I mean, if you ignore all the other times it happened, but he replaced him with another general, but just with slightly less experience and from the Air Force.
I think Abraham Lincoln fired like 5 generals during the Civil War.
Yeah, but stop it. It's just Donald Trump.
Of staff, who's an incredibly capable and intelligent person who...
Okay. He's perfectly capable and intelligent to you. This is the thing. Again, going into the private sector, people get fired all the time. You might not see something. It's okay. It's not your call to make. And just because you believe someone is qualified for a job doesn't mean they're actually qualified, and vice versa. If someone thinks you're not qualified, doesn't mean you're not. It is so just... He's not being naive, but he thinks you're naive to follow his line of thinking.
By the way, is doing important work on a day in and day out basis. Okay. What they're trying to do is cripple the federal workforce so that Elon Musk and Donald Trump have more power.
To what end? If you don't have a workforce to enact your plan, what sense does that make?
How does reducing the size of the executive branch give them more power?
I mean, I guess they're taking on the extra responsibilities.
I guess.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk themselves are now they're
picking up the slack.
They're making their own photocopies. They're no longer having someone else do it.
Doesn't have anything to do with making the federal workforce work better or efficiency and effectiveness.
Okay, yeah, nothing that they're doing is working. And the guy who revolutionized industries, the guy who's saving Americans in space, yeah, he's completely ineffective. The guy who started from virtually nothing and built this giant empire, both of them, just totally ineffective, don't know what it is they're doing, which was a message that they tried to send for the last 2 years during the campaign and didn't work. So I'm glad they're sticking to it. At least they're consistent. Something to be said about consistency. It didn't say it was a good thing to be said about consistency in this case, but something can be said. Push the button.
What's trending? The economy.
Apple announced this morning that they're going to invest over $500 billion in the United States and hire 20,000 people over the next 4 years. And they plan to do this expansion from coast to coast. Now, I was told that Donald Trump and Tim Cook, Apple CEO, that it was just a weird, connection they were making, and it wouldn't really be anything more than just sucking up to the dictator-in-chief. If this is sucking up, I like it. I'm down. Thumbs up. Are we not supposed to celebrate this? Or are we supposed to pretend that this is bad news? Because this did not get a whole lot of play today. Right? I saw a link on LinkedIn, which you would expect a story like this to be, but that's about it. I would say $500 billion being spent here is great. Now, is all $500 billion brand new $500 billion, meaning not previously discussed? No, but a lot of this is new. And a lot of what they're doing is going to be focusing on R&D, on software development, on AI and machine learning, which is going to make, hopefully, life better, or they'll become sentient beings and kill us all. I'm not entirely sure. But generally, AI is a good thing. And yet, if you go on CNBC and you listen to Andrew Ross Sorkin, he just kind of downplays. And it's like, not that big of a deal. Now, if this happened under Joe Biden, oh my gosh, he's an inspirational leader. People want to keep jobs here instead of bringing them overseas. Donald Trump, I mean, he was getting a little handsy with Macron earlier today. It was just kind of weird. Just, he's kind of like a bro. He doesn't really know anything.
One of the things we're seeing here is the president and Tim Cook, for example, meeting last week. Tim Cook telling him about these plans in hopes that when, in fact, there is a decision finally made on what tariffs look like for goods being imported from China, that perhaps some of that gets some kind of relief, a carve-out or something else. I think you're going to be seeing a lot of these kinds of announcements. I should say some of them are very real, and I don't want to discount them. But for example, in this $500 billion number, it's not all new.
I just love that. I don't want to dismiss it or discount it. But, it had nothing to do with the relationship. It had nothing to do with tariffs working and convincing folks to keep their money in this country so they're not decimated by a tax. It had nothing to do with that. Otherwise, it's a wonderful idea that is going to be a huge success, but maybe not.
He just kind of did a Jason Rantz.
I know, he really did. 1-800-465-8770 for your text. The Sunset Auto family has paid out over $6 million in warranty claims because taking care of their customers is what they do. To make sure your warranty stays valid, they offer a complimentary warranty health check with no strings attached. Protect your investment, keep your coverage intact. You just get more at Sunset, and people do like that. We come back, get into a little bit of a debate with a Republican state senator on bail bond recovery agents. You're not going to want to miss it when we come back on KTTH.
February is an exciting month for the Valentine Roofing team and our customers. All month long, we'll be celebrating our favorite holiday, Valentine Roofing Day. We're so excited to celebrate the month of February, we're spreading the love to you, the AM 770 KTTH listeners. During the month of February, AM 770 KTTH listeners will receive 10% off the purchase of any new roof. That's 10% off one of the most important improvements to your home's curb appeal and value you can make. Need a little extra affection? Our flexible financing options make it easy on your pocketbook with no money down and no interest until 2026. We're the best Valentine. We don't expect an extravagant plan, a poem, or love letter in return. We just want you to help us celebrate Valentine Roofing Day with a big discount. Our Valentine Roofing Day promotion for 10% off a new roof is only available this month, so don't miss out. Call 206 Roofing and ask about our Valentine Roofing Day special. Call us today at 206 Roofing to get started with your free estimate.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here for the law offices of Harold D. Carr. His website is haroldcarrattorney.com, C-A-R-R. If you get into a car accident, you get injured, you want the best representation possible. You want someone who's been doing this for a while, someone who knows the intricacies of all of this. You want someone who's got a staff that will handle all the phone calls and paperwork on your behalf. Because when you are getting better from an injury after a car accident that has kind of rattled you, you don't want to have to deal with paperwork or phone calls. You don't want to have to deal with the reality that most people end up with a lot less recovery when they don't have someone like Harold Carr representing them. If you think a law firm is just going to take that extra money to pay off their legal fees, no, not here. Not at the law offices of Harold D. Carr. Visit him online, haroldcarrattorney.com, C-A-R-R, haroldcarrattorney.com.
Lowe's knows that your deadlines don't change, even when your job does. But with Lowe's Buy Online, Pick Up in Store, we'll help you adjust on the fly. And when you absolutely can't leave the project, we can deliver to your job site as soon as same day. Lowe's knows pros. We help, you save. Valid on eligible in-stock orders and select zip codes placed by 2 p.m. for same-day delivery by 8 p.m. Subject to driver availability. Fees vary based on purchase. More terms apply. See Lowe's.com/same-day delivery for details.
T-Mobile 5G home internet keeps getting better. Get our fastest connection loaded with benefits. Get T-Mobile's best home internet starting at $55 a month with autopay and any voice line. Plus, Price Lock. We won't raise your rate on internet. Check availability at T-Mobile.com/home internet.
Exclusions like taxes and fees apply. Guarantees regular monthly rate plan price of fixed wireless 5G internet data with qualifying service. After $15 bill credit with postpaid voice line plus $5 a month without autopay with debit or bank account. Regulatory fees included for qualifying accounts. $35 connection charge applies. Speeds vary due to factors affecting cellular networks.
If you've been thinking about surgery or even joint replacement, here's something to consider. Hi, it's Dave Ross. I've talked to over 100 patients of Dr. Mark Wagner, MD, and many of them have told me about life-changing results. Their words, after treatment at Seattle Sports and Regenerative Medicine. These are people with severe osteoarthritis, even bone on bone, and they're back to hiking, jogging, playing tennis, skiing, golfing, walking up and down stairs, playing with the kids and the grandkids, and they're doing it without pain and without surgery. Dr. Wagner's 60-minute outpatient procedure uses your own stem cells, and because they're your own stem cells, they can help regenerate your own cartilage in your own joints. Dr. Wagner is a board-certified Seattle physician. He has over 30 years of experience, and he's performed over 20,000 stem cell procedures. And he's one of the few doing it the right way. So, listen to his patients, and remember, whether it's a shoulder, hip, elbow, ankle, wrist, or knee, before you choose surgery, first see Dr. Mark Wagner, MD. Get the facts, then get back in the game at drmarkwagnermd.com.
The Jason Rantz Show.
Jason, I got to thank you very much indeed for bringing these stories to our attention. When you tell people they're a target, they'll act like a target. They will either live in fear or they'll act out.
The more you allow, the farther the criminals will go.
And that's why this behavior is allowed to continue.
That's exactly right.
Long form.
Lawmakers are moving forward with a bill in Olympia that would make it illegal for bail bond recovery agents to enforce civil immigration laws. While it's sponsored by Democratic State Senator Yasmin Trudeau, it also has the support of Republican lawmaker, State Senator Nikki Torres of Yakima, who joins me now. Welcome back to the show.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for having me again.
So I was a little bit surprised that you were a supporter of this legislation. Tell us why.
Well, here's the thing. When you have somebody coming in claiming that they have authority to apprehend people when they've never gone through any kind of law enforcement training, that really bugs me, especially when people claim to be law enforcement or they claim to be like even certain higher ranks in military. I do not like that, and I don't appreciate it. For reference, bail bond recovery agents, otherwise known as bounty hunters, are glorified bill collectors. And they only have to complete 32 hours of training through the Department of Licensing. A law enforcement officer has to complete 19 weeks of basic law academy, and that's about over 720 hours. There is a huge difference on the type of training for enforcement.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that makes sense, by the way, because one is law enforcement, the other one is not, right? A bail bond recovery agent doesn't do the same work that an officer would do.
Again, they're a glorified bill collector. That's what a bounty hunter is.
So we should get rid of bounty hunters, quote unquote?
You know, I think we should get rid of the title bounty hunter.
Well, the bounty hunter title from their perspective is considered derogatory. They're bail bond recovery agents. We could call them bounty hunters if you. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, let's say someone skips out on bail. You don't support bail bond recovery agents?
I'm not saying that they can't go and collect, but I don't think that they should be acting as law enforcement. That's
when are
where
they acting as law enforcement? I guess that's what kind of throws me here. I'm not familiar with any cases of them acting as law enforcement.
Far, and you're correct. We have not seen. We reached out to the Washington State Bail Bond Association, and the president emailed us back saying that, number one, she had no knowledge of this person that was claiming to be a bounty hunter.
And you're, just for people, so people know, you're referring to some incident, I guess, that happened in Sunnyside, where a guy who is known to be kind of a crank, I guess, pretending to be law enforcement when he, in fact, was not, that had nothing to do with bail bond recovery agents, but there was the appearance originally that maybe there was something that was connecting the two. But that turned out to be bogus. So what?
Completely bogus.
Yeah.
So
what's the
Washington
impetus?
State Bail Bond Association president emailed us and let us know that she looked into it. There was nobody under that name. He went into the Sunnyside City Council office on Monday, January 27th, and was making a lot of bogus claims, and then tried to turn around and say that if the city didn't want him apprehending people, that they should pay him the $1,500 to $2,000 per person that they didn't want him to apprehend. Which I thought, okay, now you're trying to blackmail. And then he was also wearing a mask. I don't know if you caught the video at all or saw the video, but
yeah, I mean, it was a crank at the end of the day. So then I guess I don't understand what the concern is, because right now under state law, it's not like a bail recovery agent can serve as an immigration enforcement officer. They can't do that work legally now.
They can't, no, and they should, and this bill just codifies the fact that they can't. So it just puts it into statute that they can't. Well, it wasn't very clear. The language was not very clear, so that's why they wanted to make sure to codify it.
What I get, not to get too in the weeds because I don't know if people care about the language, quote unquote, but
I mean,
under
matter,
this,
I guess. So,
well, I'm just saying, like under the state
shall
law,
or may, should.
yeah, no, I hear you. I'm just simply saying, under the current law, you cannot arrest, quote unquote, or surrender anyone without a contract from a bail bond company. So this idea that they could just go out and, be deputized or whatever to be some sort of ICE agent, that's already against the law, and it's not happening.
It's against the law, but because I guess people just need to be more educated, and this will help with that education piece and put that into statute where it is very clear that it is not allowed.
Okay, but it is. We're on the same page, though. It is not currently allowed, and you're going a step further so that if someone might have a more detailed question, I guess that
I would say that's a fair statement.
Okay, so then let's switch gears to another issue that I'm not entirely sure you guys are thinking about. Have you talked to anyone in this industry ahead of this bill?
In what industry?
Bail recovery.
Yes, we've reached out with the Washington State Bail Bond Association.
And you talked to them about this bill ahead of time. Was there any concerns? Because it seems to be that
they are not concerned at all about this bill. They have no concerns about it. We received an email back from them saying they were good with it.
What about immigration bonds? Are we not going to collect on those?
I haven't heard about immigration bonds. As you mentioned, they already don't have those.
No. There's a difference. So there are immigration bonds. What I'm saying, and I think we're on the same page on this, someone who is a bail recovery agent can't go ahead and just, do the services of ICE, right? They can't just track someone down because they happen to be in this country illegally and turn them over. There's no doubt about that, but I hear you on just making sure the language is more, clear on that. But there is such a thing as immigration bonds, and there are companies that are national that post immigration bonds because going through the immigration process could be, 6 years. It could take up to 6 years. And so what they end up doing is you get a contract with a local bail bond agent, right? Someone who's licensed in this state, and they're paying the bail so that someone who's in immigration court can leave immigration court and, live a life while the process goes through. Under this law, it would seem that you're now banning immigration bonds from being posted. Why would a national bail bondsman?
It doesn't clearly state that in the bill that immigration bonds. So and then from hearing back from the Washington State Bail Bond Association president, they said they had no issues with the bill. They reviewed it. So as far as I know, there is no issue with the bill, and the language in the bill does not interfere with anything else other than the regular bail bond.
Sure, but I mean, it's still a bail bond, I guess. I mean, if we're talking about making sure that the language is very clear, wouldn't a bail bond agent that's nationally contracting with a local?
It's not national. So again, this language from what we heard from the president of the Washington State Bail Bond Association, they were very clear that they had no issues with the bill language at all.
But you didn't talk about this particular issue, correct?
We didn't ask about immigration bonds. We asked about the bill and the language in the bill.
Got it. I would suggest maybe bringing up this particular topic. Maybe they're not thinking of it yet at that point, but very clearly,
I'll make sure to email her now.
Because very clearly there is such a thing as immigration bonds, and if all of a sudden, because of this law, intended or not, a national bail bondsman says, "I'm not going to do this anymore," because it kind of sounds like the local bail bondsmen who are contracting through wouldn't be able to recover bail should someone skip town, right? I mean, why would they do that? Which means the immigrant who is going through the process will be stuck in jail and not be bailed out.
Yeah, well, no, I will definitely be reaching out then to the Bail Bond Association again and making sure that that's not an issue with that part of the bonds, because that was not something that was brought up at all.
Yeah. We're talking with, by the way, Republican State Senator Nikki Torres of Yakima about a new bill that would perhaps clarify for those who aren't aware of, some of the actions that a bail recovery agent can take. Now you are being a little mean, I think, when you call them a glorified bill collector. And it's kind of demeaning.
It's not mean.
You don't think it's demeaning?
Not really, because he went in there trying to.
But he wasn't a bail bonds agent. But he wasn't a bail bonds agent.
No, and he was very. He wasn't being very, very nice himself.
Yeah, because he's a crank.
And also. Yeah, and not only that, but wearing a mask. I mean, it had like Antifa written all over it. And then not only that, but he was also trying to tell the city to pay them. I mean,
okay, but he's not a glorified bill collector, nor is he a bail bonds agent. So why would we use that example to paint that picture of a bail bonds agent?
Because I think a lot of people have this theory that maybe they watched a show, The Bounty Hunter or something, that bounty hunters have some kind of training in law enforcement. So I just want to make it clear that bail bond recovery agents are like a bill collector, is what they are. And they only complete 32 hours of training, so I want that to be very clear.
Yeah, that's true, although they do continuing education every year, and they do weapons qualifications every year. So it's not like they're, coming out of training one time and then they're good.
I do weapons. I do weapons training too. I mean, I have my CPL.
Yeah, and if you go every year to do weapons qualifications, then I think you're more qualified to handle a firearm than someone who doesn't. But I'm just saying, you don't have I'm presuming you don't have a problem with the concept of recovering bail, correct?
I don't have a problem with the concept of recovering bail at all, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning.
Yeah, so
it's more of them using the fact that a bounty hunter, they're trying to make it sound like they're a law enforcement officer, and they are not. And that really ticks me off. When people say that they are some type of law enforcement, they have not completed that training.
Yeah, but are you aware of a bail bonds recovery agent who is saying that?
That was so far that person that was claiming to be when we first started the bill.
I guess my point is no one is taking that position. No, and I hear you, and I don't mean to be
Department
combative,
of Licensing. Well, hold on, Jason. Hold on. Let me finish. So, Department of Licensing has responded back to me, and they had said so far they do have a list. They didn't tell me how many bail bond agents they have registered in the state, and they also said that they do keep track of those that have violations. But they have not provided those numbers to me yet. So I'm still waiting to hear back on that.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, I'm assuming you don't think that there is this massive case of bail bond recovery agents doing this, correct? Maybe that there's
one
or it kind of feels like we would know that by now.
From DOL.
Yeah, but okay, so if it comes back and there's like a huge number, I think that's totally fair. But you would concede that there are a lot who do not violate any of the rules, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then I suppose here's where I guess I'm a little lost on your thinking. If you've got someone who's going through this training and is currently collecting bond on, a non-immigration case, don't you have exactly the same concern? Why is it different than
non-immigration?
Yeah, why is it different? If your concern is that they don't have the training like law enforcement does, which is true,
but
right?
They can go and collect because they're not actually going to do anything harmful. They're going to collect debt.
Yeah,
is what they're doing.
But what's the difference then if the person happens to be an illegal immigrant? It sounds like your concern is about the lack of training.
So when the bill collector goes, the bail bond agent goes, recovery agent goes in to find the person, it's because they owe a debt. It's not based on immigration.
Correct. But even in the case of if it was an immigration bond, it's because they are skipping out on their bond. So again,
I'm not familiar with the immigration bonds, and that's what I was trying to tell you, that the focus was not on that. This is
I hear you, and I appreciate you pointing that out because I don't want people to think that you were aware of this, and that would be unfair. However, even in the case of what you are talking about, they would still have had to go through the system and post a bond for a bail bond agent to even have any interaction with them at all. Again, because under current law, you can't just go ahead and be an ICE agent.
Well, they'd have to have skipped bail.
That's what I mean. They would have to, there'd be a reason for them to go after them.
There have to be real reason for the bail bond recovery agent to go and try to find this person to collect.
And that's the current law is my point. And again, I hear you.
Law.
Yeah, but I hear you trying to make the language a little bit more clear. But it just seems like you're saying there's a problem that doesn't exist.
As far as we knew, we did not know it didn't exist. So again, as I mentioned earlier, I want to be clear on that. We did not know if this person was legit. We just got word back this week that this person was not legit. So
now that you know
that was from the bail bond recovery.
But now that you know that, does that not change?
Sorry, they're calling me off.
One last question. Now that you know that that's not true, does that change the way you look at this issue at all?
You know, this is, I guess, again, to codify that so that people do not have that fear, like what this person did was to go and cause fear. I think that this would help.
Okay, fair enough. And again, don't mean to be combative. We have a honest disagreement here. I've been talking with.
No, that's. I'm okay to disagree.
Yeah, there you go. If you
want to disagree,
that you're not a Democrat, and that's why Democrats don't come on the show very often. We've been talking about Republican State Senator Nikki Torres of Yakima. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Jason.
Have a
Bye.
good one. You're listening to the Jason Rantz Show. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. 1-800-465-8770 for your text messages. We're back with some quick hits right after this.
Attention! If you owe money to the IRS, this is an urgent message. The IRS is cracking down by sending out collection letters, garnishing paychecks, seizing bank accounts, and putting liens on homes and businesses. They call it enforced compliance, and you better watch out because penalties and interest on unpaid taxes compound daily, making it even harder to get out of debt. Don't let tax debt destroy your life. You need to call Optima Tax Relief, America's #1 tax resolution firm. They're experts in taxpayer assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. A+ rated by the Better Business Bureau, Optima's resolved over $1 billion of tax debt for their clients. Let them fight on your behalf, helping to put your tax problems to rest. Call the tax professionals at Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460. 800-343-6460.
Optima Tax Relief. Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz here for Alpine Specialty Services. When you mention my name, you can get a special on carpet cleaning. You just say, hey, Jason Rantz sent me. And then you get 3 rooms of ultra premium carpet cleaning for just $239.95. You can schedule your service right now at alpineclean.com. But think about Alpine Specialty Services as more than just offering you a great deal, because it's also about the service. And let me say, when you get really bad service, it doesn't matter how much you're paying, how much money you might be saving. It doesn't really feel like you're saving anything. It kind of feels like a burden. It kind of feels like the job that they did isn't all that great, wasn't worth the money, because they're not treating you the way that you ought to be treated. Alpine Specialty Services, they've changed that. One might even say they've revolutionized it, because they're all about you. Their mission is about delivering exceptional customer service. They want you to feel as if you paid quadruple what you end up paying. They want you to feel like the VIP that you are. And if you don't believe me, go back and look at their 10,000 plus 5-star online reviews. It makes it pretty clear how great it is at what they do. So head on over to alpineclean.com. Schedule your service today. alpineclean.com.
John Curley here for Longevity Medical Clinic. I have to tell you, I don't know where I would be in my life without Longevity Medical Clinic. I've been a patient for 15 years. It's so easy to get started. Schedule a free health analysis appointment online with LongevityMedicalClinic.com. During your visit, you're going to spend a full hour with your doctor to craft a comprehensive health plan tailored to your exact needs and lifestyle. I've been able to reduce my risk for serious disease like heart disease, diabetes, and cancer. Longevity will help you plan for long-term well-being and personalized healthcare. The approach is really simple. It's proactive. It focuses on prevention, going beyond the traditional model of just merely managing your symptoms and treating conditions as they arise. Let's face it, just because you're getting older, we're all getting older, it doesn't mean you have to fall apart. Get started with your free health analysis at Longevity Medical Clinic. That's LongevityMedicalClinic.com. Again, that's LongevityMedicalClinic.com.
Hey, it's Jason Rantz. I'm here with our local tax expert and advocate, Greg Nunn of None Better Tax Resolution. Greg, people often think about the financial obligations when they owe money to the IRS, and it's crushing them, but it's also crushing their spirit.
You know, it does. And folks, look, I know when you are in a place where you're owing money or you know you haven't filed, it starts building that emotional pressure on you.
And I imagine for a lot of folks, the fear of getting called at work or having other people find out about what they owe is just adding to the stress.
Everything, I think, adds to the stress. And I just want everyone to know, too, that we're non-judgmental. And the most difficult thing you might have is picking up that phone and calling for someone to help you.
If you're having trouble with the IRS, you have to call Greg Nunn of Nunn Better Tax Resolution. From stress to success with IRS Solutions. 425-947-1967 or Google NUNN. Nunn Better Tax Resolution.
The Jason Rantz Show.
Jason, it is always great to have you on the program.
Where are they going to move the homeless to?
People who impose these policies that lead to these outcomes, you are partly to blame, but the good news is you can fix this.
Jason, this is kind of the last trend you want to be right about, but it was obvious, it seemed.
The Quick Hit.
Some huge news and a rare victory for landlords in Washington State, all courtesy of the Washington State Supreme Court, which ruled that the CARES Act, remember that? The CARES Act has a 30-day eviction notice requirement for housing. If you're going to evict, you have to give them, if they're not paying their rent, you have to give them 30 days notice. And this was courtesy of the federal government, which passed it during COVID. And landlords were saying, whoa. We're dealing with, for example, and what led to this particular case in front of the Washington State Supreme Court was, we're dealing with this person in subsidized housing. It's managed by the King County Housing Authority. We've had a ton of different incidents from this particular family or from this particular person who's living in the unit. Law enforcement has had to come by to respond to shootings. There have been stolen vehicles tied to this house or apartment. There have been arrests of people on site. This is not being properly managed and maintained. We're booting this person. And so they booted the person at the time, this was back in 2023, and said, you've got 3 days to vacate. Well, then it came into the hands of an activist group, which then helped push this through the court, saying under the CARES Act, you have to give us 30 days, not 3 days. So the Supreme Court took a look at this and said, actually, 3 days is okay in this case. The 30-day eviction notice is exclusively for cases of non-payment of rent, not because of cause around someone, in this case, being a nuisance. And this was a unanimous decision. Now, according to the court, they said the context of the CARES Act demonstrates that it was intended primarily to provide economic support to tenants during an emergency situation, not to alter the general eviction laws of every state. And by that, they mean you can't just, from a federal level, use the CARES Act to completely circumvent the entire relationship you have between a landlord and a tenant. In that you're not going to completely upend the entire process in circumstances in which clearly this was not intended to be used for. And all they had to do was go back to how the CARES Act was debated, discussed, and voted on. And just the actual literal language of the CARES Act. They're saying it's pretty clear what the intent of all of this was. And clearly the intent was not to give cover to someone who is deemed in good faith a nuisance. And so they said, quote, the clear statement federalism rule is a canon of interpretation that requires Congress to make its intent unmistakably clear when enacting statutes that would alter the usual constitutional balance between the federal government and the states. So in other words, it has to be unmistakably clear if the federal government is going to change rules that would then, in this case, alter the way we handle evictions. And so what it says in this opinion, essentially reinforcing that it was never intended to permanently supplant state eviction procedures. And I say that this is somewhat unusual in that, number one, it was unanimous, but it was unanimous for the side that would traditionally be deemed quote unquote conservative, even though I don't think it is. Again, I don't see this as inherently political, that if you are a landlord, you should be able to have a little bit more control over who is utilizing your property, who you're allowing to stay there. Including, by the way, in cases of non-payment. The 30-day nonsense is still in place. I think that that's absolute lunacy. And now that we have a Congress that is under Republican control, we should get rid of this immediately. But at the end of the day, this is still a pretty significant victory for landlords in a state that has routinely demonized them. And maybe in this case, because the quote-unquote landlord was the King County Housing Authority, the very left-wing Supreme Court in Washington gave them special treatment that they otherwise wouldn't give a landlord. But again, at the end of it, beggars can't be choosers, I guess, and I'm happy that this is what happened as a result. If you want to read the case, by the way, if you're a nerd like me, I've got it linked over at ktth.com. Meanwhile, speaking of housing, the Roosevelt Hotel migrant shelter in Manhattan is going to be shutting down in the next few months, courtesy of a mayor, Eric Adams, who's done an about-face on this issue, in large part because he wants to help, fix the relationship between New York City and the Trump administration, because he wants, not to have to face federal charges, and the president, even though there's been some hurdles, can get in the way of that. I think that's a leading part of this. There's no other way to explain, other than wanting to avoid jail, Eric Adams doing such a significant about face. Now, is he also looking at some of the polling and the shifting views, even in Manhattan, deep blue Manhattan? Sure. I'm sure that plays a role. I just don't think it would play a large enough role to explain this. Now, we already know that this facility has about 1,000 rooms, and it's processed over 173,000 illegal immigrants since May of 2023. He said in a statement, "While we're not done caring for those who come in our care, today marks another milestone for demonstrating the immense progress we have achieved in turning the corner on an unprecedented international humanitarian effort. Now, thanks to sound policy decisions of our team, we're able to announce the closure of this site and help even more asylum seekers take the next steps in their journeys as they envision an even brighter future while simultaneously saving taxpayers millions of dollars." Now, we expect that this is going to happen in June, so, we've got a little bit of time. But, I've only been to New York definitely once, maybe twice, since they've taken on all of these migrants and opened the Roosevelt Hotel. I think I walked by it, or maybe I drove by it once on my last trip. And you can tell things are not normal. Things are being allowed to just kind of fester. And they've had, in New York City in particular, a very obvious and troubling crisis amongst criminal elements within that group. And the only way you're going to truly get it under control is to close things like this down. You're going to have to move these folks out. Now, some of them might become homeless and even bigger threats. Others might go to different cities and take their resources. But it's at least happening in the context of an administration that takes this issue seriously. And under Trump, I think most people can say honestly, we probably never had so much promise about what's to happen moving forward as it relates to our immigration crisis. And the people who are here who shouldn't be, you're going to get deported ultimately. They might be starting right now with the hardened criminals who pose a direct threat. But ultimately, folks are just coming and trying to take advantage and took advantage under the Biden administration. You're not guaranteed to stay here. If anything, it's closer to a guarantee that you're going to get deported. 1-800-465-8770 for your texts. 1-800-465-8770. You're listening to The Jason Rantz Show. When we come back, it's time to tackle the initiative killer. And actually, surprisingly, the Seattle Times is even getting involved. We'll tell you how when we return on KTTH.
Is it time to get your home sold? Nick Southard with Upgrade Realty here. Selling hundreds of homes around the Sound for over 25 years has taught me presentation is everything. And with my luxurious marketing, you'll attract tons of buyers, sell fast at top dollar, and net more money. Because Upgrade Realty will save you thousands in fees for only 1% listing commission. To learn more, visit upgraderealty.com. Upgrade your listing for 1%. Upgraderealty.com.
Homeowners, what's the point of having a yard if you can't actually use it? Jason Rantz here. The Pacific Northwest, it rains all the time. It turns grass into a muddy, unusable mess for most of the year. And when it's dry, you're stuck trying to get it to look good for a few months, only to start all over again. Synthetic Turf Northwest is the solution. For nearly 30 years, they've been transforming yards into beautiful, usable outdoor spaces that are always green, always ready, and always inviting. No more mud, no more mess. Just a clean, comfortable space for kids to play, pets to roam, and for you to actually enjoy. And right now, when you mention this ad, you get a jump start on the season. You save up to $1,000 off your new yard. Whether it's a backyard, a putting green, or a space for entertaining, they're going to help you design the perfect lawn for your home. Visit syntheticturfnorthwest.com. Upgrade your yard and take back your outdoor space. syntheticturfnorthwest.com. That's syntheticturfnorthwest.com.
A good retirement requires more than just having a retirement nest egg and a good investment strategy. Sadly, most people don't have that kind of a plan. And that's why retirement turns into a nightmare for most retirees. Nightmares of one falling ill and ending up in a nursing home, becoming a burden on loved ones, and losing money to uncovered care costs. All preventable with the right retirement plan. Hi, this is elder law attorney Rajiv Nagaich and founder of LifePoint Law. Let me invite you to resolve to make 2025 the year you create a real plan for retirement. I've helped thousands of people in the Seattle area, and I know I can help you too. Come to one of my retirement planning seminars this month, and I will show you how.
Attend a free seminar in Issaquah on March 1st, Tacoma on March 4th, or Gig Harbor on March 5th. Register at lifepointlaw.com or call 253-838-3454. 253-838-3454. Since 1988, Mark and the team at General Transmission Repair have been saving their customers money on repairing transmissions. In many cases, a transmission issue can be resolved with a simple fix. General Transmission Repair focuses on the problem, not the dollars. Expect honesty, professionalism, and quick turnaround time with General Transmission Repair. Right now, save $250 on any transmission repair. Mention this ad or go to generaltransmission.com/KTTH. That's generaltransmission.com/KTTH. If better health and more energy are some of your priorities this year, get Active Liver today. Find Active Liver at your local CVS or online at Amazon or NewNordicUSA.com.
KTTH Seattle, 97.3 KIRO FM, HD3 Tacoma, Seattle, K233BU Seattle, and K233 DT Eastlake.
Optimistic for a ceasefire. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. French President Emmanuel Macron met with President Trump to discuss the Russia-Ukraine war.
A ceasefire or peace deal ending the three-year war between Russia and Ukraine could include the deployment of European peacekeepers, French President Emmanuel Macron says.
I think we should never say, I will never send any boots on the ground, because you give a blank check to violate any type of commitment.
President Trump says Russian President Vladimir Putin would accept European peacekeepers.
If we do this deal, he's not looking for more war. He doesn't mind, but I've specifically asked him that question. He has no problem with it.
But on Russian state television Monday, Putin said he has not discussed ending the war in Ukraine in detail with President Trump.
Fox's Jared Halpern at the White House. The UN Security Council passing a U.S.-backed resolution calling for an end to the Russia-Ukraine war. But the measure makes no mention of Russian aggression.
Our draft resolution is elegant in its simplicity, a symbolic, simple first step toward peace.
U.S. UN Representative Dorothy Shea, 5 nations, including France and Britain, abstained from the vote. A new proposal would bring a big change to many food stamp recipients.
Millions of additional Americans who receive food stamps would be required to work under a new proposal from House Republicans. South Dakota Congressman Dusty Johnson reportedly is planning to introduce the America Works Act of 2025. The legislation would require able-bodied Americans who don't have children and are on the SNAP program to work at least 20 hours per week or perform work-related education. The bill applies to those between the ages of 18 and 65. Adults with a dependent child under the age of 7 would be exempt from this requirement.
Fox's John Saucier. A Delta Airlines flight returned to Atlanta this afternoon after the flight crew reported haze in the cockpit. America is listening to Fox News.
I'm Lauren Simonetti, and this is the Fox Business Report.
A comeback on Wall Street losing steam with the major averages kicking off the week mixed. This week will feature earnings results from NVIDIA, one of Wall Street's most influential stocks, as well as updates on consumer confidence and inflation. Shares of major tech companies fell, weighing on the NASDAQ. Shares of Palantir Technologies tumbled 10%, extending its 4-day decline amid investor concerns surrounding potential Pentagon budget cuts and their impact on the data software company's revenue. While Microsoft fell 1% after an analyst report from TD Cowen said that the company is cutting spending on data centers, raising fears of weakness in the artificial intelligence intelligence space. The Dow up 33 points, the Nasdaq lower by 237, S&P 500 down 30. And Zoom Communications delivering a decent earnings report, but shares are falling after hours after the teleconferencing company issued weak guidance. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
Why pay more for prescriptions? Stop overpaying and start saving with SingleCare. It's easy. Find your prescription on singlecare.com, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and start saving. SingleCare works at pharmacies nationwide and is completely free to use, whether you have insurance or not. So the next time you fill a prescription, check SingleCare to make sure you're getting the best price. Take control of your prescription costs. Go to singlecare.com or download the
The yellow light! God, I'm walking here!
Good afternoon and welcome to the Jason Rantz Show. We are here on AM 770 KTTH. We are streaming on the KTTH smartphone app. It's a big day for conservatives. Not only did we get rid of Joy Reid, but we elevated Dan Bongino. We'll get into that. But first, the initiative killer is moving forward here in Washington State, and it's titled that for a reason. That's what's trending, brought to you by Legacy Group Capital's Northwest Fund.
What's trending? Let's get political.
I will say, finally, the Seattle Times woke up and decided to cover this issue, something that we've talked about on this show many, many times. The Senate Democrats decided to move forward with an initiative that would effectively kill our initiatives, a bill that would kill voter-led initiatives. They're doing this because they're upset that last year Republicans were able to push through a slate of initiatives that were incredibly popular that reversed the legislative victories for the Democrats because what they were pushing was deeply unpopular. Now, of course, they found a way around, for example, the Parents' Bill of Rights. They just completely gutted it and ignored the will of the people. That's what's going to happen once they end up passing it. But they also decided to pass a bill that would add new requirements overseeing the whole signature gathering process. But the requirements are such that it is impossible to actually complete, which means if this were to pass, assuming it's constitutional, which is a big question, if it passes the way that it's written, Republicans are correct in dubbing it the initiative killer. Now, one of the parts of this that is just so insane to me is that you would, as a signature gatherer, someone who's going around asking people to sign the petition, you would have to sign a declaration on every single sheet of signatures that they collect that it is accurate, what you're sending in. Now, you might say, well, so what? Well, because if I go up and I sign Jackson's name and I put incorrect information and the person signs it, they're now in legal trouble. Why would anyone willingly do that? They're expected to fact check the addresses and the information in a way that is not just cumbersome, but pretty much impossible. And as Senator Phil Fortunato put it on the Senate floor last week, the Republican from Auburn, this is an assault on the voters of Washington.
We have a constitution for a reason. And, you know, it's pretty simple, pretty clean. You just have to be a registered voter. Now, sometimes people will make mistakes. Sometimes people will sign initiatives twice, for example. Sometimes maybe they moved and they didn't re-register or whatever. So they will make mistakes. That's why we have the process of verification with the Secretary of State's office.
Now, speaking of the Secretary of State, Steve Hobbs, who last time I checked was still a Democrat, right?
He is.
Very much so. He's against this. He calls it unnecessary. He says it's cumbersome. He says it's expensive. And as Senator Jim McCune of Graham points out, it's unconstitutional.
And this is changing the wording of the Constitution and making the goals so high and the task so high that nobody will be able to get signatures.
Now, in Washington State, we have a right to move forward with a voter-led initiative. You can make it easier to do voter-led initiatives. You cannot make them harder. That's our constitutional right, which is why this bill is so clearly unconstitutional. But they'll move forward with it anyway. And of course, they're pretending that this has nothing to do with wanting to shut down the initiative process. In fact, to quote Jamie Peterson, the majority leader on the left, quote, "Nobody wants to shut down the initiative process." You know, that would be more believable if y'all didn't say you wanted to stop the initiative process at the beginning of this legislative session because you were upset with the initiative process. You have Democrats who aren't content with having total control of the governorship, the House, and the Senate, and the Supreme Court. They're not happy with that. They need to have total control, which means you won't get a say. They're saying, oh, no, we're just implementing rules to make it safer because, you know, people cheat in election. Oh, really? Didn't y'all tell us that that doesn't happen? Wasn't that a big talking point from the left? That, oh, our elections are perfect. What are you talking about? Well, technically, we didn't say anything about the voter initiative process. Oh, okay. Understand. If this goes through, we no longer have an initiative process in the state of Washington. It is not possible to abide by the rules that they put in place, and that's precisely why they're putting these rules in place. And that even the Seattle Times gets it, tells you how bad it is, how egregious it is. If even the Seattle Times is calling attention to this, then it's a problem. And they are calling attention to this. I would just want to read a small portion of this because it is a little bit, it's a news story, but they're editorializing a little bit. Because I agree with this editorializing, I'm okay with it. A Senate bill backed by Democrats want to add new requirements. It would require the Secretary of State's office to check addresses during the signature verification process, and it would require signature gatherers to sign a declaration on each sheet of signatures they collect. Backers of the bill say this will increase accountability and ensure each signature belongs to a registered voter. They don't think it should be controversial. It is. And it's with those two words, it is, that tells you as best as they're ever going to, you know, come out in favor of Republican opposition. It tells you how extreme this actually is. So ask yourself whether or not you believe we should retain the right to voter-led initiatives. And if the answer to that question is yes, then you should be upset with this legislation. If you're upset with this legislation, you should make it known that you're upset with this legislation. You should call your state lawmaker. You should send an email to your state lawmaker. You should tell your friends to do exactly the same thing. You know why we now finally have the ability for law enforcement to pursue criminals who are fleeing in a stolen Hyundai or Kia? Because of the voter-led initiative. We were the ones who got that finally reversed. How many crimes were committed as a direct result of the Democratic legislation that barred police from vehicular pursuits? How many? So many we can't even keep track. How many pot shops had stolen vehicles driven through them, and then the bad guys, upon stealing whatever it is they could, drove away in another stolen vehicle? I mean, there's some shops that got hit multiple times within a short period of time. That's because of that bill. It was reversed as a direct result of you. Now, of course, we would be celebrating the Parental Bill of Rights, but Democrats decided to just gut that because they lied to you. They lied to us all when they said, okay, fine, we'll accept the initiative, and then just undo it. It's pretty disgusting. But if this bothers you, okay, do something about it. Say something. You can be civil, yet still be passionate when calling or writing to your lawmakers and making sure everyone knows the voter initiative process is incredibly popular. Did you know that?
Really?
Shocking, I know. People like signing things. It's incredibly popular. So when people realize that this is indeed an initiative killer, they likely will start to push back themselves. So let's make sure we're actually saying something in a way that could effectively move this along. Get in the way of this. Let's find out what else is trending.
What's trending? Starbucks.
So Starbucks announced today that they are laying off at a corporate level some 1,100 or so employees. They're out. They're not out of a job just quite yet, but they're on the way out. Now, the reason why this is actually pretty simple. But I heard an interesting response that got me thinking a little bit differently, or at least understanding maybe a different perspective. On the one hand, you had the CEO, Brian Niccol, saying, here's what we're doing. We have to streamline our operations. We've got too many people, especially in corporate positions. In fact, he wrote in the letter announcing all of this, quote, our intent is to operate more efficiently, increase accountability, reduce complexity, and drive better integration. Now, that makes sense on the surface, yeah? They've got some bloat. They're kind of doging themselves. They're going through a doge session. And the people who are impacted will find out apparently by tomorrow afternoon. But on our sister station, one of the hosts there had said this might be Starbucks trying to get ready for some tough economic times, or you might want to tighten the belt a little bit right before you expect a tumultuous economy, which also kind of makes sense. But I don't think that's what this is. I don't think that that's what's going to happen because there's no indication that we have or will have a struggling economy. Now, there's reason to believe that unemployment's going to go up because we're firing a whole bunch of people. Did you get the memo?
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're terminating a lot of people at the federal level. And so obviously those numbers are going to start to go up. But I don't think that this is a reflection of, a concern about the economy. I think it's a reflection of Starbucks being so far gone that they have to make some pretty drastic measures to course correct. We heard from the CEO, I think over the weekend, or at least I saw it quoted over the weekend, where he said it was a mistake to put as much of an effort and put as much attention to mobile ordering and drive-through. That clearly was the directive coming from previous leadership. Focus on mobile, focus on drive-through, in part because they were being influenced by the change in habits around COVID and the fact that everyone's super lazy and they would just rather drive and get their order rather than walk in.